Hi team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prab, and today we're going to cover CISA Domain 2, which is Governance and Management of IT. Thanks for sharing a great response on the Domain 1 video, but I can promise you one thing, this video is far better than any paid videos which is available on Udemy and other portals. I really put a lot of efforts in building this content because 2025 I thought I will make more content on CISA. It was based on demand. So here I am with the domain 2. It will be a big video because I've covered the small thing about the domain 2, and I'm sure after this video you don't need to read the book also because you get the visibility. And if you're preparing for the CISA, I have seen a lot of people failed in CISA exam because of domain 2. So give proper attention to domain 2. I'm not saying you should not read the book, you should read the book, but after this video you get a more clarity from the book. My name is Prab, and for more information you can check my LinkedIn profile. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so domain 2 represent again 18% of the exam. It means 18% content of the exam testable from the domain 2. It means domain 1, domain 2 combined 36% testable. So approximately 27 question we can expect from the domain 2 in the exam. Domain 2 is also divided into two parts. One is called planning and one is called as a management. And planning has a huge content. So law, regulation, industry standard, very important. Organization structure, IT governance, very important. IT policy standard, very important. Enterprise architecture consideration, risk management, data privacy program. It is part of a new syllabus of CISA. Data governance and classification, some part has been added here also. And part B, we have IT resource management, vendor management, IT performance monitoring, reporting, and quality assurance. So this part I'm going to cover in the part 2 of the domain 2 because it's a very big. So first we're going to start with the part 1, which is called IT governance. See, before I jump into what is IT governance, let's first understand what is governance, what is risk, what is compliance. And for that, I have recorded one already video. It's already there on YouTube, but I have added that video in this particular thing. So my next content, okay, after this slide will be that GRC introduction, and I want you to check that video because it's very important for you to know the basics of the governance. So before we jump actually into the content of domain 2, let's clear some basic fundamental about the governance. So before we going in detail about GRC, let's understand the full form of GRC. So GRC basically stand for governance, risk, and compliance. Or you can say governance, risk management, and compliance. So it is a structured way to align the IT with the business goals while managing a risk and meeting all industry and government regulation. So GRC is a framework, GRC is a process by which we can able to align the IT with the business goals while managing the risk and meeting all the industry and government regulation. So before going to discuss in detail, let me explain you why we need a GRC. What is the reason that, okay, this is a very buzzword in the industry. So I have one video. With that video, I'm going to share you the importance of the GRC in the organization. Okay, let's play that video. Okay, so if you see in this video, there's a guy. Okay, so you can see a lot of challenges, mismatch. Now this guy want to reach office. Now he see how he following a process. He just jump into the bus. There's a guy want a coffee. He just randomly park the car. He want a taxi. See how he took the taxi without following any process. Not abiding with the traffic rules, nothing. He want to deliver the package. Even the rule was mentioned, remove the helmet, but doesn't matter for him. See how he jump. Just following a random things, reaching the goal. So what is the learning for us from this video? Lack of rules, lack of structure, lack of strategy, lack of process. which create a lot of chaos, right? It create a lot of trouble. Okay, it also bring a concern on a health. So that is same thing happen in the company. Just imagine we are introducing a random business, and for that we introduce a random IT, and later on we got to know it doesn't support the business requirement. It is creating a loss for the company. That is why we need a governance, risk management, and compliance. Okay, so when you're talking about the GRC, okay, so GRC, the governance, basically all about a set of rules, okay, policies, operation that company use to achieve its business goal. In the same video, if you notice, there was no rule. Governance is all about a system. It is a structure. Like example, like I want to run a country. So for a country, what is required? We need a people, we need a government, we need a policy, we need a law, right? By which we can govern the country. Now in the same video, if you notice, there was no governance. Okay, there is no process. Anyone basically randomly picking the taxi, jumping on the taxi, coming from the roof. There's no rule. So you can imagine the absence of governance creating a lot of trouble. There are a lot of countries nowadays, okay, which is not run by the government. And what happened? It created a lot of trouble. No business, nothing. So you can imagine without governance, you can't run the country. So how can you run the company? So in the company, we have a people, we have a roles, we have a strategy. That is called as a governance. So if you go by the definition, governance is a set of rules, policy, operation that company use to achieve its business goals. It defines the responsibilities of a key stakeholder such as board of directors and senior management. If you can see the second part, which is called as risk management helps the business to identify risk and find a way to remediate anything that are found in the company. So company basically use the enterprise risk management program to predict the potential problems and minimize the loss. Let's take an example. You're preparing for a certification. So you want a process by which you need to clear the exam, but it is not possible for you to remember the word by word, line by line till the last day of exam. So what you did the risk assessment, where you identify, if I don't prepare this, what is the impact? If I don't prepare that, what is the impact? If I don't prepare this, what is the impact? So by this, you prioritize some important areas and you refer that area to clear the exam. Same thing happened in the company. It is not possible for us to protect everything. It is not possible for us to protect everything from everything. So that is why governance basically drive the risk management. But without governance, there is no risk management, because we need a people to conduct the risk management, and that comes from the governance, right? So example, like you're preparing for a certification. Okay, so this is basically the phase 1 and this is basically phase 10. This is your end goal. So you prepare the strategy how to clear the exam. But during that, you need to read book, you need to refer notes, you need to refer videos. So here you did the risk assessment to identify what is important in the book, what is important in the notes, what is important in the video. You refer that area only, and from which you are able to achieve a desired vision. So governance drive the risk assessment so that we can able to prioritize the activity. And to make sure, you should prepare the exam. You should clear the exam. So that is called as a compliance. So compliance is the act of following rules. Compliance is the English word. It's all about act of abiding. Act of abiding. It can be anything. It can be a compliance with the stakeholder requirement. It can be abide with the law. Okay, it abide with the regulation. It abide with the business requirement. So it is basically applied to the legal and regulatory requirement which is set by the industrial bodies, and also for the internal controls and corporate policies. So if you go by the overall process, this is how it works. Governance build a set of operation by which they're doing a risk assessment just to make sure we compliance with the legal regulatory requirement. Let's take one more example. Every organization has a vision. Based on a vision, we basically create a mission. Based on a mission, we create a strategy. And based on a strategy, we basically creating a tactical plan. And based on a tactical plan, we basically creating an operation plan. So here the vision is to basically meet the legal requirement, regulatory requirement, business requirement. So we hire the people. We hire the corporate professionals. They are the one who basically understand the legal regulatory requirement. That is an example of governance. They do the risk assessment on the strategy, tactical and operation just to make sure they compliance with legal regulatory requirement. That's called risk assessment, so that we can compliance with the legal regulatory requirement. So that is how the governance works. So if we have a business here, we have a process here, we have a requirement here, we have a technology, the role of a GRC is to link everything just to make sure technology creating a value for the business, process creating a value for the business, regulatory creating a value for the business. So that is basically called as a GRC. So let's understand in more detailed manner about the integration of GRC. Okay. So this is the reference we have. Now, if you notice in this diagram, you get the better visibility. So we are creating a strategy. Let's understand in a more layman term. Okay. So there is a company which is called ABC. Okay. This company is based out in Europe. This company is based out in Europe. Now what happened? One of the primary regulation in the Europe is GDPR. So we have a regulation which is called as a GDPR. Okay. So ABC is the name of the company. And they are basically operating in EU. And they need to be comply with the regulation. Now what happened? There is a company based out in India. Okay, there's a company which is based out in India. Now that company basically has a multi-story building. They have a first floor, they have a second floor. So first, second, and third. Now when we're talking about their second floor, where we have a people, we have a process, and we have a technology. Okay, which basically support the EU business. I'm sure this point is clear to everyone. So we have a second floor here, which basically support the EU business. Now this employs the people, the process and technology, they want to access the EU data. They want to access the EU data. So process is very simple. We need to make sure this company, okay, should be comply with the EU requirement. And one of the EU requirement is GDPR. So what happened? This company basically appoint a data protection professional. This guy basically create a policy, because it is not possible to educate my 1,000 employees how to comply with GDPR. So what we did, we basically appoint the data protection consultant, and he create a policy, he create a strategy. You know what is this? This is called as a governance. Who basically understand the need of the EU, who understand the need of the business. For the company, the business is comply with the ABC GDPR requirement. And based on that, he create a policy, he create a strategy. Based on that, this guy basically conducted risk assessment in this area, just to make sure we can comply with the GDPR requirement. So that is how the governance we introduce about the policy, did the risk assessment just to make sure we comply with the legal regulatory requirement. So same process here. When we have an office in India, where we have a people, we have a process, and we have a technology, okay, which basically support, which need to be comply with the EU requirement, which is called as a GDPR. We basically introduce the policy, we introduce the strategy. Okay, the requirement is basically all about the governance, and how we demonstrate that we are basically comply with GDPR by giving the evidence about the set of reports. So that is how things works. So governance is all about creating a policy. Governance is all about building a strategy. Governance is all about the process, based on which we did the risk assessment. Okay, just to make sure my policy, my process is compliance with the legal regulatory requirement. So that is how the GRC works. I'm sure this point is clear to everyone. So question is, when we're talking about The GRC, the outcome of a GRC is strong ethics, efficiencies, improve the business process and effectiveness. And that is how it works. Okay. So question is why GRC is required in the organization. The business we have, which need to be comply with the new or updated regulatory requirement. We have a companies who need a data privacy protection. Okay. A risk management cost increasing at an unprecedented rate. And last but not the least, reduce the total cost of ownership. So that is how we basically define the GRC. As we're talking about information security specific GRC, we have a different type of GRC functions. We have a different type of governance functions. Okay, so if you go by the governance element, so if you talk about the governance part, the first part is called as the enterprise governance. Okay, so first part is called as the enterprise governance. Then further, we basically have a IT governance. Then we have a information security governance. So enterprise governance, creating a strategy, IT governance, supporting the strategy, and information security governance support the IT strategy. They are the one who creating a value for the enterprise governance, and information security governance basically ensure they're able to protect and run the IT in a secure manner and support the vision of an organization. So in their level, they're creating a people process. In their level, they're creating a people process policy. In their level, they're creating a people process policy. So that is how the governance works. So summary is that as we have a company here, which is based out in EU. Okay. The name of the company is ABC. And then we have a company which is in India. Where we have a people. We have a process. And we have a technology. To comply India with company GDPR, which is called compliance, we basically introduce the process consultants. We introduce the privacy consultant. And they are the one who basically creating a data protection strategy. They are the one who doing a risk assessment. Okay. And based on that, they're introducing a policy, and that policy is basically applied on the people, process, and technology. Live example is you're not supposed to carry a pen drive in the second floor of the facility. You're not supposed to download any data because we have employees who are trying to access the European data to support the EU customer. So by this way, they're creating a policy and apply the policy on the people, process, and technology just to make sure they comply with the GDPR. So that is how the governance, doing a risk assessment to understand how to protect the resources, the GDPR data, so that they can comply with the GDPR, which is called as a compliance. That's called GRC. So in my next video, we're going to discuss about what is governance first. And then in the next video, we're going to discuss about risk and compliance. Okay, so next topic is called as IT governance. Actually, this domain starts with IT governance. But before I jump into IT governance, I want to discuss one hierarchy. Okay, so the hierarchy is like this way. So first we have a vision of the company. Then we have a mission of the company. Okay, and then we have a corporate governance. And this corporate governance in ISACA we called as the enterprise governance of IT. Under the corporate governance we have a governance called IT governance, and under the IT governance we have a information security governance. Okay, so corporate governance will be driven by the board and senior management. Let's take example. They want expansion on. They want expansion around. They want to increase the customer base. They want to move to digital. So building a digital strategy is part of IT governance. How to secure the digital strategy or how to secure the cloud is basically part of information security. So IT governance with the information security governance work together to create a value for the corporate governance. Understood? So that is to say IT governance is not isolated but part of a corporate governance structure. And if you get any question, what is the ultimate goal of IT governance is to ensure that audit will be properly done, compliance to the respective things, legal and risk management functions. So all those things are part of IT governance. Okay. And as I said, bank want to increase the sales. Bank want to increase the presence. They want to increase the revenue. So offline banking cannot support the revenue. They want to go digital. They want to introduce digital banking services. To support the digital banking services, we have IT functions. But whatever the banking function we are running, it should be comply with the regulatory like RBI or something else. So IT governance include the audit team. They have a compliance team. They have a legal team. They have a risk management team to make sure there any wrong move, it should not impact, or any bad move cannot backfire them. So they ensure the strategic alignment, risk management, and responsible IT resource deployment. Okay, so IT governance ensure their initiatives are aligned with the organization strategy. Risk will be managed because ultimate goal of risk management is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level, and proper resource will be deployed to support their IT initiatives. So you can expect some scenario-based questions on IT governance roles. What is the ultimate goal of IT governance? Ensure to be aligned with the organization strategy and mitigate the risk to an acceptable level. That something is basically part of the requirement. Okay, so next is basically called as a law and regulation. So before I jump into the law and regulation, because this is also impact your audit, it is impact your functions and everything. Before that, I want to give you the brief information about thin line difference in law and regulation. So when we say law is something, if you take example of India, it is created by a parliament, approved in the parliament. Is it clear? Enacted by the legislatures. Like when we appoint the ministers and all that, they create a law. And based on the law, we introduce a regulation. Regulation was introduced to control a specific industry. By ultimately, law was introduced to protect the interest of citizen of country, and regulation was introduced to protect the particular industry. Let's say example in India, if I want to start bank, I want to comply with RBI. RBI is a regulation. If I want to start the food services, I want to comply with FSSAI. If I want to start any kind of a service in insurance, I need to be comply with IRDA. Okay. So as a company, I will comply with the RBI, and by complying with RBI, I'm abiding with the law and all that. So one more example I can give you is from India context. If you want to know, is we have a Information Technology Act. Okay, this is the primary legislation governing a cyber law in India. It provides the legal recognition for electronic transactions and defining a cyber crimes and address the data protections. Okay, on the other side, when we're talking about the regulation, we have one regulation called CERT, Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, certain rules. So these rules establish certain in the National Agency for Cybersecurity. So that's a live example we have. Okay, so it's basically very important. The law is supreme and it enforces the regulations. Regulations is maintained by IS and IPS officers. So when you comply with the regulation, you're complying with the law. So when you're working in an industry, you primarily need to be comply with the regulations. And if you fail to comply with the regulations as per the law, they can put a penalty on us. So sometimes what happens when you're doing an audits, when you're doing an operations, you have to abide with the laws, regulations and everything. So IT governance must comply with the local and international law, and they regulate the data storage, processing and security. That something is part of a requirement. And I'll give an example of that. Let's say example. So if you take an example here, India, or let's say example, we have India. Okay. And they have a company and they're doing a business in Europe. So customers who are based out in Europe, they're using our Indian services. So this company need to not only comply with Indian regulation where they operate, but where they set up and where they operate, they also need to be comply with European one. So same like we have a head office in US. They have a services in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and India. If they're creating any kind of policy US, first they will check what are the parameters they have as per US, and then they also need to respect the local law of the land. One more important thing, local law, okay, supersede the international law. Is it clear? That's a very important part you need to understand. Same like any tourist come to India. So they have to comply with the India law, right? Same. He has his own priority in Europe, US, but when it comes to India, he has to respect the law of the land. Or second example, when you have an office in India, you can use WhatsApp, VoIP and all that. But same employee, if he travel to UAE, he cannot use a WhatsApp. WhatsApp is calls are banned in UAE. Free VPNs are banned in UAE. You have to respect the law of the land. So one, you can add whatever the international treaties you have, and then you can add the local law. So make sure the IT governance comply with the local and international law that regulate the data storage, processing and security. And regulatory compliance involved developing a policies, procedure to protect the shareholder interest, because by end of the day, they are working for that. And from the exam point of view, remember, be aware of the major global IT governance regulation, but don't need to memorize all, okay? But understand their impact on the IT governance. Like let's say example, as per GDPR or any as per data privacy processes, privacy requirement, you cannot able to process any random data. Is it clear? Now, if you're collecting too much data and all that, it can backfire from regulatory perspective. So you have to understand the legal regulatory, and according to that, you need to collect the data. And there are some limitations in which you're collecting those data. So sometimes too much privacy can impact your audits. So from the exam point of view, you just need to know the high level regulations. Like example, GLBA is a US specific, which is talking about financial protection of US. FERPA was introduced for student data privacy. COPPA is also for children online privacy protection under the age of 13. Children Internet Protection Act is also there. HIPAA is for healthcare. So if I'm doing a healthcare business in US, collecting healthcare data, I need to be compliant with the HIPAA. FISMA was an act after the 9/11 attack happens. If you're into federal using IT systems, they need to be compliant with FISMA. And if I'm registering myself as a public entity in US, I have to be transparent with my financial accounting reporting because I need to be compliant with SOX. So these are the US specific regulations. Canada has a PIPDA. So if I'm doing any kind of business in Canada, I have to be compliant with PIPDA. See, US has an industry specific privacy regulation. For healthcare, they have a HIPAA. For finance, they have a GLBA. You're getting a point. But Canada or Europe, they have one national privacy regulation which cover all kind of business. So Canada is PIPDA, which cover all kind of a business. Then we have a EU and UK, which GDPR is there. GDPR is a strict privacy law which cover for Europe, and UK Data Protection Act, which is basically talk for the healthcare in UK. Asia, Japan has the Financial Instrumental Exchange Act, and South Korea has a PIPA. Middle East has the Saudi PDPL. You can expect some question on a PDPL, and South Africa has a POPI Act. So I'm sure you find this infographic useful or mind map useful. So as isaca is more US centric, so I'm expecting some questions around the US regulations. So remember that. Expect question on the impact of the law and IT audits, like GDPR affect data retention policies, and focus on privacy, security and compliance aspect. The difference between privacy and secrecy is privacy is a set of information deal with individual, and secrecy is a set of information deal with organization. Okay, that's something you need to understand. So when you're talking about IT organization, they must review the IT asset protection policy because it hold all type of data. If you fail to protect the data as per regulatory, there is a penalty. Like GDPR has a 4% of total revenue of 20 million euros. So you can imagine. So when you're talking about IT audits, IT organization must review the IT asset protection policies. And if you're talking about any audit principle, we always start with auditing policy first, and then program, and then system. Example, I'm auditing a change management. First, I will check the policy. Then I see the change management program, and then I validate whether they're doing this practice effectively or not. So always remember, as an auditor, whenever you get a question, what is the first thing you audit in any organization is a policy, because policy is a management statement. And then based on a policy, you will do the audit of the rest of the things. So IT organization must review the IT asset protection policy. A regulatory review ensure the policy compliance and security controls. That something is very, very important for the exam. So from the exam point of view, understand how audit ensure the compliance with industry standard. Okay. And you should know the difference in compliance audit and operational audit. Let's say example, I'm doing an audit just to make sure they comply with GDPR or not. That is called compliance audit. I'm doing an audit based on RBI, but company has their internal SOPs. Company has the internal procedures and which is agree with the stakeholder. Based on that, I'm doing an audit that is called as an operational audit. Okay. So when you implementing IT governance in the organization, okay. So one is that you can use your own process of creating an IT governance, or you can refer some frameworks. Okay. So let's take example. I joined as a CIO in the organization, and the company told me to implement the IT function. Okay, build the IT function. So let's say example, I want a information security. I want information security. So for information security, we have a standard called ISMS 27001. For BCMS, like business continuity, we have a standard which is called ISO 22301. Okay, and for a service management, we have a standard which is called ISO 20,000. Okay, for a quality management, we have a standard which is called 9001. So if I'm implementing a IT function in the organization, I'm implementing all the standards. Just imagine it's a nightmare for you to implement all these standards in one go. But I want to implement IT function, right? So in that case, there is a one document, there's a reference standard I will use, or framework I will use, which is called COBIT. Now COBIT is a IT governance framework which cover everything. So they cover your information security also, quality management also, and everything. So let me explain you with the example so you get a better clarity. Now let's take an example, like we have a one COBIT framework here, okay? So here, now COBIT has a governance, they have a governance management. So they talk about two things. So I want to implement IT function. So here I will go to process practice. Okay. And I can see here security. I will type security here. And I can see one of the function is called as a manage security. Define and operate, impact, and establish ISM, as you can see. So instead of implementing from a scratch, understood? Instead of implementing from scratch, I will refer this particular framework which say what are the process practice I can basically apply. So I will adopt those process from the framework, and then I will check the respective control from a respective standard. So it is easy for me to do this. So framework is a logical structure and standard is a control requirement that we can implement. Is it clear? So it is always good if you want to implement IT function in the organization, I will refer the framework. I will see process and practice. I will ask the stakeholder, do you need this or do you need that and all that. So by adopting those process and practice, whatever relevant, and then I will go for like example, I say manage security. It's a process. Now for that, we can implement with the help of ISMS 27001 and NIST 853. So we have a standards to implement that across the organization. So it is always good to adopt the framework first, understand the need, what is required, what is not, skip that, scope that, tailor that, and then you can implement. That is how you can implement the IT function in the organization. Now, second standard we have is 27001, a dedicated standard for implementing information security management system in the organizations, because information security covers under the IT governance. The third is called as a NIST we have, which focus on risk management security framework. And then we have ITIL for service management. COBIT can be testable indirectly because COBIT is owned by ISACA. So you can expect one or two questions indirectly on the COBITs. Is it clear? And high level, you should know. So first summary we have is IT governance, integrate compliance, audit, risk management. Regulatory compliance is critical for IT audit because that cannot be skipped. You should know privacy law like GDPR, HIPAA, SOX, and we have to see how it impact on the IT governance. Like because of the GDPR, we cannot collect too much data because it breach of privacy. HIPAA doesn't allow it to store the healthcare information without the consent. So during an audit, we cannot able to process those informations. So this is how the regulations impact your audits. COBIT is most tested IT governance framework, and you can expect some questions around how the IT auditor ensure compliance. One thing you need to understand in domain 2 is that first they will tell you the concept, will teach you concept, and then they will tell you the perspective of the audit. Okay, by end of the day, perspective of audit is testable in the exam. Now next is called regulatory compliance and multi-jurisdiction law. As I said, you have a company head office in US and they're doing a business in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and all that. So you have to respect the law of the land. It is not something, okay, you can enforce directly US law in India. Definitely US law will be also considered, but also you have to see what are the local laws we have. So local law always supersede the international law. So enterprise operating in a multiple jurisdictions must comply with the legal regulatory requirement of those area. Is it clear? Like Amazon doing a business in US, but now they're doing a business in India. But it doesn't mean, okay, they will enforce the US policies in India. They have to respect the law of the land. That's why they build Amazon India Private Limited, Deloitte India Private Limited. Okay, that something is there. So some laws like GDPR apply even to the enterprise not headquartered in the jurisdiction if they process data of citizen from the region. So example, in India, from India, we're processing the European data. So I have to comply with GDPR. Okay, so GDPR apply globally to business that handle the European citizen data, require the compliance with strict guideline on data transmission, storage and destruction. Okay, now if European come to India, first you need to respect the law of the land. As per the, okay, so you are from Europe and you come to India and you looking for a hotel and you refuse, okay, as per GDPR, I will not share. No, as per the India law, hotels has to collect the passport details and all that. Then we will see what does the GDPR say, how you process the information. So this is how we have to see. So respect the law. But if I'm doing a business from India to Europe, doing a business for Europe, doing a business for European citizen, I have to be comply with GDPR. Understood? Because I'm entering into Europe and doing a business. So you can expect some questions around GDPR, how it globally applicable and compliance requirement for multiple enterprise. See, as I said, GRC is an integrated approach. Okay, for managing assurance across the enterprise. So we need to ensure the organization can reliably achieve the objectives, address the uncertainties and act with the integrity. So what comes first? First come the governance. We already discussed in the video, governance is set of operation. Okay, you can take an example of governance start from your house. Okay, so parents create the rule for their kids. Parent itself is part of a governance. They creating a strategy for you, how to shape your habit, how to shape your career. They create a schedule for you. Like morning, you have to wake up, have a breakfast on time, go to school on time, lunch on time. All this part of a governance. It's all about managing. So in the organization also, governance is all about managing policies, process and decisions. But they cannot do like that. They have to do based on risk assessment. Let's say example, parent has created policies, created rules, create some kind of a habit for you. Now suddenly you said, I want a PlayStation. So they will see the budget. They will do the risk assessment. Okay, can I give him a PlayStation? If I give him PlayStation, does it impact the study? Does it coming under a pocket? So we have to risk management so that they can comply with their ethics, they comply with their norms, they comply with their habits and everything. Because governance is a set of operation to execute the risk management so that we can comply with the legal regulatory requirement. We're taking the same example here, the parents creating a policy, creating a budget, creating a rules for their kids. Suddenly kid has demand, I want a PlayStation. So we do the risk assessment, parents do the risk assessment. If I give him the PlayStation, what is the impact? If I don't give, what is the impact? If I break our FD, what is the impact? Is it under my budget? Because compliance is not about the law. Compliance means abiding with our ethics. You know, we have a vision for our kids, right? Is it complying with our things? So this is the cycle we follow. Okay. So that's why we call GRC is an integrated approach to manage assurance activity across the enterprise. Now let's understand GRC from the organization perspective. Management create a policies. Okay. We implement the policies. To by end of the day, we have to comply with something, right? That something is part of video. Even in the video, you have seen the example of GDPR. The same thing we had, right? So you can expect some questions on how GRC components are integrated, how compliance and risk management help in the enterprise. So GRC can be implemented in the finance, in the IT and legal area. Like when we say financial GRC, it ensures compliance with financial regulation like SOX in the USA. If you're talking about IT GRC, it ensures the proper IT operation, cybersecurity, regulatory compliance. And enterprise may also implement general GRC for overall regulatory adherence. So be prepared for GRC framework based questions. You might get COBIT, ISO, or understand how the GRC helps the organization to achieve the compliance and risk management objectives. The most important success of compliance with legal risk and everything is senior management support. Without that, you can't do anything. So some pointers are there like GDPR and similar regulation apply globally to the business. GRC is integrated as a single framework. And the most important is auditor ensure the proper enforcement of compliance policies and everything by doing a background check, monitoring and everything. And GRC is implemented across the finance, IT, legal areas to ensure the compliance with law and risk management function. Now we're going to discuss about the next important thing, which is called as a corporate governance. Okay, we already discussed in the initial side. So we have a vision, we have a mission, and then we have a corporate governance. Now, corporate governance is the one who understands the mission and vision of the company. They evaluate the legal requirement, they evaluate the regulatory requirement, they evaluate the stakeholder requirement. Okay, and then they're giving a direction. They're giving a direction to the CIO. Now, CIO creating their own plan, build, run, and monitor, which is part of the IT governance. And then we have a CISO. He create his plan, build, run, and monitor, support the IT and Cs and corporate governance. So corporate governance ensure the ethical issues, decision making, and governance practice are properly established within the enterprise. So board is the one who responsible for overall governance. So any question in the exam, it say who is ultimately answer for governance. Answer is board. Board is a part of a corporate governance. Who's ultimately responsible for security? Board, because he's the one who answerable to the management. Oh, sorry, answerable to the stakeholders. So board is responsible for overall governance, finance. So, and if you see an example of corporate governance, under which we have a multiple governance, like IT governance is there, information security governance is there, financial governance is there, physical security governance is there, HR governance is there. So we have a different governance. So board is overall responsible for the governance. IT governance focus on leaderships, organization structure to sustain and extend the enterprise strategies. And that's how we say a good corporate governance framework is the one which enable the transparency, accountability, and everything. So you can expect some questions about the corporate governance framework, how the IT governance help in risk management and compliance. So importance of corporate governance in business. See, without corporate governance, we can't implement IT governance and information security governance. Success of IT governance, information security governance is called as a bag and support by the board. Without board, you can't implement anything. So governance ensure the business objectives are aligned with the enterprise goals. Is that clear? Which can be IT and everything. So for that, we need to first establish a trust. So trust-based, transparent environment should be there. So they need to have visibility. And we always look for the long-term investments, financial stability and accountability. And government regulation also require the internal control and financial reporting transparency. This has happened after this. You heard about the 2001 scandal, 2008 scandals in US. After that, the stock market was down, and So here what happened is SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX regulation we have in US. It was introduced after the 2001 fraud. And they have made it mandate that any company who listing in the US stock market and all that, they have to demonstrate their financial reporting structures. They need to demonstrate the financial reporting controls. Is that clear? Maintaining those SOX is always a challenge. Maintaining control of SOX is very important challenge, because before that fraud which has happened in US stock market, the companies were increasing the valuations, showing the high level valuations and all that, which has basically backfired the things. Okay, so to overcome that only, the SOX has basically mandated, if you're demonstrating a financial report, you have to demonstrate the controls over those financial report. You need to demonstrate about your governance, how you're maintaining that. And the CPA or the auditors are the one who will sign those reports. So by this way, we can have a visibility. Same like in India, like public listing companies and all that, or any public companies, they need to submit the financial report that is signed by the CA. So government regulations in US require the internal control and financial reporting to avoid any frauds and everything. That something is part of a requirement. Okay. So summary is that corporate governance establish critical ethical and decision-making structure for enterprise. IT governance align the IT with business goals, ensure the compliance with risk management framework, and corporate governance component like process, policy, ethics structure are the key to the IT governance success. So next is basically called as the enterprise governance of IT. It means corporate governance of IT, it means how the board is controlling the IT. See, one thing we need to understand, according to the CISA and according to Audit, we have two things here, governance and management. Governance mean corporate governance. Okay, management is basically mean your CIO and CISO. Governance is all about setting a direction. And management is all about implementing the direction or following the direction. So as I said, like we have a governance, which is called as a corporate. They are the one who evaluate the stakeholder need, evaluate the regulatory need, and then they're giving a direction. Hey guys, we have some requirement. Then based on that, CIO, CSO, CFO, they are the one who create their own strategy. They are the management people. So always remember one thing, when it comes to CISA Domain 2, they use the word management and governance. This term came from COBIT. So enterprise governance or IT ensure IT align with the business objectives and deliver value. So this business objective is set by the board of directors, and IT strategy is created by the CIO. And overall governance objective is to make sure IT strategy align with the business objective. So whenever any question in the exam talking about ultimate goal of IT governance, ultimate goal of IT strategy, a good strategy, or how can you make the statement correct that okay, the strategy is valid. The strategy is valid because the strategy is aligned with the business strategies. Is it clear? And IT decision making is responsibility of board of directors and executive management. That something is part of the things. So the key goal of enterprise governance of IT is that maximize the IT benefits, managing IT related risk, reduce risk to an acceptable level. So from exam point of view is that enterprise governance IT is a part of corporate governance, focus specifically on IT strategies, risk and value delivery. That something is part of the IT governance. Let me explain it again. When I say IT governance, so here we have a corporate governance. Under this, we have a IT governance, and under which we have a information security governance. So information security governance is part of IT governance. This section is called as the enterprise governance of IT, which is owned by the corporate governance. That's why I said IT decision making is a responsibility board and executive management. So they are responsible to maximize the risk, minimize the risk, maximize the IT benefit. Now, one thing you need to understand is when it comes to EGIT, which is called enterprise governance of IT implementation, they can ensure the accountability by best practice. So they have three major functions. The first is called IT resource management. What is the function of this? Maintain the updated inventory of IT resources. Because until unless we don't know what we own, we cannot able to manage. Second is they should introduce the metrics for the performance measurement. So, and which ensure the IT resource deliver value and track the performance using key indicators. Let's say example, after introducing a digital services, the revenue was increased by 15%. So this is a very good metrics which say how the IT is creating a value. Okay, by introducing information security controls, we able to reduce the breaches to 15%, and which increase the trust of customer is 15%. This is a good metric. So we need to introduce a metrics by which we have to demonstrate how my resource is managing effectively. And third, compliance management, ensure the regulatory and contractual requirement with IT related policies, because some regulation has the requirement that, okay, you need to demonstrate your IT controls and all that. So all these are part of that particular framework, which is basically a need and everything. So from the exam point of view, remember that be familiar with the IT governance framework like COBIT, and risk management compliance are the core component of the IT governance. So what is the difference between the EGIT and IT management? See, EGIT, strategic level, like board level decisions making for IT land with business goals. IT management is all about day-to-day IT activities and implementation. Objective, ensure IT deliver business value while managing risk. And IT management, IT systems run efficiently and support the business operations. Enterprise governance IT talk about the board director and senior management, where the IT management talk about the IT managers and technical team. So exam point of view is EGIT is a strategic high level, where the IT management is more like a tactical level. As I said, we have three stages. So we have a strategy here, we have a tactical here, and we have a operation here. We want digital services, we want information security, which is discussed in the board meeting. Then we have a CIO here, who part of tactical also, part of strategic also, because in part of strategy, because he has to know the business perspective and all that. On tactical side, we're creating our own strategy, which is for the overall organizations tactical, like we need information security, we need automation, we need data center, and then on an operation level, we implement those controls. Is it clear? That's why we say EGIT is strategic high level, where the IT management is tactical level. And COBIT has basically differentiate these two things. Now, one thing we need to understand is EGIT is focused on two critical questions. Does IT deliver value to the business? Or is it IT managed properly? Like, does the resource has been managed properly, risk is managed properly, compliance and all that. So remember that ultimate goal of enterprise governance IT is a strategic alignment of IT with business. And that's why the IT governance include the embedding the accountability into the decision making process. How? Like whenever any kind of a decisions initiatives happens, we do the risk assessment. So that's how it basically play an important role. So now we're going to understand the auditor perspective. So role of an audit in the enterprise governance IT is first is that, just to make sure whatever has been implemented, is it aligned with the business goals? Okay. So we ensure the compliance with governance policy and controls. We evaluating the effectiveness of the IT governance practice. Let's say example, there is a control in place. We audit the control by, let's say example, we have a SOD, separation duty. We check the logs, we perform a temporary transaction and see is the SOD is working effectively or not. Okay, we provide the recommendations how to improve the IT. And it's very important that we need to have an independent review. That's why we have internal audit in the organization. So they independently do the audit and provide the visibility. And they also validating risk management control framework to ensure business continuity and information security. So be prepared about the questions around how the audit contribute to enterprise governance IT and understand the relationship between the governance, compliance and risk management function. So that's a very important part. So we have a next topic, which is called 3 line of defense model. Very, very important. In every organization, you can see the 3 line of defense, and they widely accepted as a management framework which clarify the roles and responsibility in the organization. So here the first line of defense is called as a business units, operation management. You can say business unit, IT operation, security analyst, system administrator, developers. They are called as a first line of defense. They implement the control, they perform the operational risk, they perform day-to-day operations for risk mitigations and all that. In layman term, SOC analyst, you can say it's part of the first line of defense. They detect the phishing attacks in the security logs, block the malicious emails and all that. Then we have a second line of defense. Second line of defense are called as risk management, compliance and control functions. They are the one who monitor and enforce the policies, like your risk management, compliance team, GRC team, CISOs, all are basically part of the second line of defense. They are the one who monitor and enforce policy. They conduct the risk assessment. They ensure the organization to be comply with the legal regulatory requirement. From a perspective like, CISO, we have who review the SOC report to ensure security policy has been followed, phishing incident response procedures are effective. That is there. And the third line of defense are called as an auditors, regulatory bodies. So they are the one who audit the second line, first line, and doing the overall audit of the business. They are the one who directly report to the board. They basically provide the assurance that everything is working as per the business requirement. Okay, so they are the one who conduct the independent audit. They evaluate the effectiveness of first and second line of control, and they report to the senior management board. They don't report to anyone actually. Okay, they don't report to anyone. Okay, if you take a live example is real-time defense by first line, policy enforcement risk oversight is the second line, and auditing the phishing response effectiveness is basically the third line. In more layman term, you can say, if you take the example, first line defense are act like a act. Okay, they mitigate the threats. Second line is basically act like a check. Okay, and third line is basically act like a verify. Okay, so act to mitigate the threats, check to enforce policies, risk monitoring, and third line is basically verify the audit and compliance verification. So this structure is critical, and that's how things basically work. And CISA exam, they can ask you question around this area. So you should know this in a high level, like who does what and everything. Hope it is clear. So you can expect some questions on a differentiating the roles of each line. You should know the internal audit. So as I said, an internal audit is the one who directly report to the board. Okay, so when we say good practice for a effective IT governance, okay, as I said, IT governance include the board oversighting IT and everything. So to ensure the effective IT governance, organization should, the first important thing, satisfy the stakeholder need by generating a business value from IT. So when auditor doing an audit, he has to check, is the IT operation generating a business value for IT? And question is how? We have to see, are we balancing the IT benefit, risk and resource? Are we complying with the GDPR? Whatever the selection we are doing for IT service provider, it is adequate, and are we mitigating risk? And From the exam point of view, you need to remember one thing is that you can expect some questions on regulatory compliance and IT governance practice, and be prepared for the scenario based questions. Okay, so a good IT governance is the one which align with the business objectives. So summary is that enterprise governance of IT ensure IT aligned with the business goals, value delivery and risk management. Governance is all about strategy, management is about operation. You should know thin line difference that in layman term, governance set the direction, management implement the directions. COBIT is a widely accepted IT governance framework. Okay, and regulatory compliance and IT risk management are the key governance element. Okay, so next topic we have is information security governance. Okay, now what is information security governance? Before I jump into the information security governance practically from CISA perspective, let me first give you the holistic view. As I said, every organization has a vision. Based on a vision, we have a mission. And then we create an organization strategy, which is basically created by corporate governance. Here we call it as a EGIT. Under the organization strategy, we have a IT governance. Okay, and then we have a information security governance. So information security governance, creating their own strategy, functions and everything to create a value for IT and creating a value for organization. Ultimate goal is to reduce the risk. So me as a CISO, when I join the company, I'm creating a strategy, I'm creating a process, I'm creating a policy, I'm hiring a people, you're getting a point. So all those things are working together to create a value for the stakeholders. So we all are a group of people called as an information security function and represent as an information security governance. In more layman term, let me example is we have a organization. Okay. And this organization is based out in Kerala. Let's say example, Kerala, and they have a 3 floors building. In the second floor, they have a sales team. Okay. And they support EU customer. So they need to be comply with GDPR. Now abiding with the GDPR, the principle, it is difficult for the sales team to follow. So they appoint the DPO, they appoint the CISO. CISO will basically interpret the DPO requirement, GDPR requirement. Based on that, he create a policy procedure on second floor. So he create a policy, he create a procedure, he create a strategy, he appoint people. This entire set of activities are working together to protect the second floor, to be comply with GDPR. This is called information security governance. After this slide, I will play one video. You have to check that video, which give you the holistic view of the entire information security governance. And it is good to check that. Okay. So information security governance ensure that security activity align with the business objectives, and business objective is what? Create a value for the stakeholders and comply with the laws, regulations and all that. And it is a subset of the corporate governance that provide the strategic direction for security initiatives. Company has decided they want to go digital. They will ensure when we go digital with a limited risk. Company decided to go for cloud. They ensure if the company going for cloud, data should be protected. So ultimately security governance, creating a value for the stakeholders. Today, if you take an example, I don't want to take an example of the one of the fintech who faced the regulatory issue from RBI because of lack of governance. Okay, if you take example of 2015 about Ashley Madison chat platform, they got hacked, and because they got hacked, it exploited the trust on the consumers. So after that, they don't use the Ashley Madison. So here the security is creating a trust, security creating a visibility, security creating a value. So all the security activity we are doing with the proper risk management. Okay. And to make sure they can able to use this thing effectively. That's a very important part we have. Governance is basically all about set of operation, and we have a different type of governance: IT governance, information security governance, enterprise governance, and all that. Now, as I said, if you want to run any country, okay, we need a governance there. Now, when I say governance, mean we need a government. Okay, we need a policy, we need a law, we need regulations to manage people, manage traffic, manage structure, and creating a value. So same like in the company. Now let's take example. I want to start a business. Okay, I want to start a banking business. Okay, and to support the banking and doing expansion in the banking, I need a technology. But how the technology is linked with the bank, how the technology is basically linked with the business. We need a strategy. We need a risk function. We need a people. That is basically called as a governance. So governance is all about strategic planning. Governance is all about the roles and responsibility, organization structures. We need an enterprise architecture. We need a policy and guidance by which we implement the functions in the organization. Now let's take an example. As I said, you are preparing for a certification. Suppose you're preparing for a CISSP certification. Okay. What you need for preparing CISSP certification? You need a book. Okay. You need a videos. You need a question practice paper. So these are the three resources are required. The question is what to start, how to start, and when to start. Because you have no idea. Should I go by videos? Should I go for question practice? Should I go for books? So what you did, you create a strategy. That is an evidence of a good governance. You have created an accountability matrix that, okay, I will invite my friend, I will find an instructor, and he will basically going to deliver the training for me. So you set the clarity about who will be responsible for what. And then you basically create an entire study plan. When to read a book, when to review the videos, when to practice a question. And based on that, what happened, instructor basically created a rules for you. Make sure Monday to Friday you work hard, Saturday, Sunday, you are basically reviewing this question practice, there's a notes and everything. So that is how he created rules and regulations. By complying with all those things, by having all those things, I can able to clear my CISSP certification. But if I don't have all these things, I don't have a trainer, I don't have a resource, even I have a resource, I don't know how to follow that. So that is an example of the lack of governance. Okay, same like we taken the example of a country. Okay, in the country, if I don't have a law, then what happened? There is a person one. Okay, he will kill the person two. He enjoy that freedom. He is basically on a road. He is in a hurry-burry. He will basically bang into someone's car. He will cross the red light and go to the other place of the particular location. Why? Because there's no rules. There is no traffic police. And that is an example of the bad governance. So we have a traffic lights. We have a rules that to be followed that will be enforced with the help of law. And we have a government. Because of that fear, the person will basically respect the things and abide with the orders and make sure he will drive carefully and safely on the road. That is the example of governance. So governance is all about the strategy planning, organization structures, roles and responsibility, enterprise architecture, policy and guidance and implementations. So that is what is called as a governance. Let's take one technical example of the governance. Suppose you have a company and they want to migrate their operation to the cloud. Okay, which is actually managed by a third-party provider. So how governance works? So let's take an example. You're running a company called ABC. Okay, you already have a data center. You have a servers on-prem. Okay, and now you have decided that you want to move into the cloud. So you decided to move the service in the cloud. And the cloud is basically suppose AWS. Okay, so for me as a company, AWS is basically a third party. AWS is a third party. So how are you going to manage the cloud? Okay, so what we need, the first important thing is basically required a strategy. So we have to see, do we have a strategy in place? That is a one thing. Okay, so we need a strategy to define how to move service in the cloud. Do we have a strategy in the domain of a cloud computing? Second is, how should our security policy evolve around that change? So policy is required. We need a cloud security policy. Okay. Third is all about responsibility. Responsibility. Is our security organization suitable? Who is responsible for it or the business line? Then fourth is, when we're moving in the cloud, what is a risk? What is a risk? What is a risk associated with moving to the service in the cloud? So that's something we need to understand. Along with that, what are the controls we have? Controls are the another important thing, right? Then is there any need to review our system of monitoring? What data is basically moving in the cloud? What is the impact on our compliance with the legal regulatory frameworks? What indicators do we have to monitor the adequacy of a solution? All these things is a requirement of a good governance. So you can imagine it's not something, okay, rocket science that you have directly moved to cloud. No, understand the strategy. We need to create a cloud security strategy. We need to create a cloud security policy. We need to specify who is responsible for what. Okay, what is the risk associated with moving into the cloud? Okay, what are the controls we have? What are the compliance we have? What is the legal regulatory parameters we have? What is the metrics we have? All those things is an example of a great governance. Now just imagine if I'm not doing any of these things, what happened? We directly move to the cloud and later on we face the breach. That is why the governance is the foundation of any organization. Even in to conduct the risk assessment, we need a people, and people is a part of the governance requirement. Okay. So question is how things works in the company, because I receive a lot of feedback. Prab, how to start? What is, like, we say GRC, how to start? So in order to start GRC, first we need to understand the business requirement. Let's take example. You are operating a service in India, or you're operating a service in EU. You're operating a service in EU. So you understand the business requirement, you have a meeting with the customer, you have a meeting with the stakeholders, understand the vision, missions and everything. Okay, so business requirement understanding is very important. And for that, they have appointed you as a CISO. That is the first example of a good governance. Now, based on that, you will create an information security strategy, which is basically their 5-year plan. Now, when I say information security strategy, let me show you some sample of that, which I downloaded from the Google. Let me show you the example. So this is how the information security strategy look like. Okay, so it basically talk about the 5-year plan. Here you can see information security strategy, and you can notice this is basically the 5-year plan. They talk about the table of content, which include the version control for the integrity purpose. Okay, then talk about the versions, approvals, introductions, background, strategy proposals, and all that. If you notice, they talk about what is the list of activity they're going to perform, what are the list of initiatives they basically introduce, okay, in the organization. So example, like they're talking about definitions, because it is very important to talk about the definition, security threats, vulnerabilities and all that, because as a layman, the person is going to read this strategy document, because this document is give the clarity, this basically give the visibility about the security functions. Now here you can see strategy proposal, they talk about vision. Okay, they talk about the key themes like identify, protect, detect, respond and recover. So they followed the NIST methodology, and they give the clarity about how the strategy works like. Then they talk about who is responsible toward the security. Okay, now if you notice here, now they're talking about each and every activity. Now first activity is that they want to have a set goal. So here the first thing is that they want a governance and compliance. So they give the objective, they talk about the approach of building a governance and compliance, and they talk about the measurement success, because we need a metrics by which we need to measure the functions. The second part, they want a risk management. They talk about the objective, why we need risk management, what is the approach and what is the measure. The third thing is they want a third party risk management. Okay. Then they talk about how to protect, they want a user access. So for that, they introduce the objective, like we want a IDM and all that. Then they talk about what is the approach of using IDM, what is a measurement success. Then they talk about information security awareness. Now let's take one example. They're planning to use a cloud. So they define the cloud services, what is the objective of cloud security control, what is the approach you are using, and what is the metrics. So when you're creating an information security strategy, it will be your 5-year plan, in which you're talking about the list of initiative you're planning to introduce in the organization. That is why we said building the information security strategy. Now problem is that when you're introducing an information security strategy, okay, in which you talk about the multiple initiatives, like example, you want a information security activity, you want a IDM, identity access management, you want a cloud security control, you want a data protection requirement, you want a data privacy protection requirement. So for every activity, any kind of a system you want to introduce, you need to first introduce a policy for that, because policy basically talk about why we need that. Okay, so based on each and every activity, you are basically drafting a policy. Then you basically form the department according to the initiatives, where you set the clarity about who is responsible, accountable, consult and informed. So we call it as a RACI chart, RACI, RACI chart. So that's a very important thing. Along with that, we conduct the risk assessment, okay, to identify what we have and what we need to achieve, because it is not necessary we have to start from zero. Might be my previous consultant has implemented some activity. So we do the risk assessment, we do the gap assessment, and based on that, we build the program management. This is also called as a program charter. So example, we said IDM. Okay, for the IDM, what are the activities we need to do? So that is part of a program management. Like we have a ISMS manual, right? So same like we have a program management. Let me show you the example of that. So how it look like. So this is how the program look like information security is a business. Then this is the program for security function. In order to implement properly, maintain robust information security function, the company name we give, agency we give. Okay, then we talk about each and every program functions like security policies, organization of information security, then asset management. We're giving a description here. So let's take an example. We have a physical environmental security. So objective physical environment security is to prevent the unauthorized physical access. Okay. We discuss about the key card system, budget requirement and all that. We give the detailed security objective initiative. So that is how it works. Okay. So for each and every activity, we have a program. Okay. Program management is more like a tactical in nature. And then based on that, we build the matrix. Metrics are very important because until unless you don't introduce a matrix, you can't measure any activity. So metrics are required. Okay, for example, I convince the management I need an incident management system. So part of a program management, we add the incident management system. But I need to measure the success of incident management system. Number of incident has been closed, number of incident has been resolved, a number of incident has been dropped, right? So we need a matrix because until unless you can't measure, you can't check the effectiveness. And based on that, you do the compliance assessment. So I have taken the NIST document, which gives the visibility about how this overall process works. Okay, so this is basically the process. Now, if you notice, first I understand the interest of a stakeholder. They have a wish, they want to comply with the legal requirement, regulatory requirements and all that. And based on that, I created a goals and objectives. Okay, now here, one thing is basically missing, which is called as a strategy. So strategy basically talk about the roadmap. And after that, I have created a policy and procedure. Based on a policy procedure, I basically create a program. In program, we talk about all the list of activities. Then we basically implement those activities. Then we basically assess that activities to identify the gap and everything. So we can see we have a positive impact on the business or we have a negative impact on the business. So based on that, we introduce we modify the goals and objective, and again, we modify the policy and process. So if you take an example of CISSP, okay, so suppose you are a student, you're preparing for a CISSP certification. So your interest is to clear the exam. Okay, so based on that, I have created my goals and objective to make sure you should clear the exam in a first attempt. So I introduce a strategy. Okay, when to do training, when to refer this, when to refer that and all that. And based on that, I have created a policy. Make sure you should adhere to the policy where I will tell you some instructions. You have to follow those instructions. Based on that, I have created a 2-week program in which I discuss the topics and everything. Then I implement the program in my training. And I have seen the drastic result. People are clearing the exam and it has a positive impact on the business. So always remember, whenever we're going to review the goals objectives, when we're reviewing the policy and procedure, the biggest reason for that is based on the business impact. So that is how the entire program, entire process works in the system. So when we're talking about the overall functions in the governance, the overall management roles are divided into 3 parts in the governance. Okay. But before that, let me take one more example of the information security. So let's take an example. Stakeholder interest was to combat against the threats and everything. So based on a goals and objective, we created information security strategy. And based on that, in the information security strategy, there is one process we need to introduce, which is called as an information incident management system. So based on an incident management system, I have created an incident management policy. And based on that, I have introduced the incident management procedure, which talk about the detailed idea about how the incident management works in the company. And then we basically implement the incident management system in the operation level. So this is basically operation level. This is more like a tactical level. This is basically more on a strategic level. We have reviewed the results. It was a great results. We get an earned value contract. We can see the effectiveness. And based on that, we analyze the business impact. So that is how the process works. So first step is strategy. Then based on a strategy, we're creating a policy. Then policy, based on that, we have a program. Then we implement the program and then we measure the program result with the help of metrics. So in the governance, we basically have a 3 type of roles. Okay. Which is called as a management roles, because management is a process of achieving the objectives. So we have a different type of management: informational role, interpersonal role, or decision role. So managers have many roles to play within the organization. So if I say information role, they are the one collecting the information. Okay, they are the one who processing the information, who using the information, which can basically affects the completion of the objectives or completion of the task. So that is basically called as an informational role. Second is called as an interpersonal role. Interpersonal role are the one who interacting with the superior subordinates. And third is basically called as a decisional role. They are the one who basically selecting from the alternative approach to resolve the conflicts and everything. Now, if you take an example of the informational role, okay, just give me a second. If you take an example of the informational role are basically actually it is reference from the multiple books. So if I say take an example of informational role, they are the one which is basically act like a monitor, disseminators and spokesperson. They are basically called as a informational role. But when you're talking about the interpersonal role, they are like a figureheads. Okay, they are basically a figureheads. They are the one who are the leaders. They are the one who are the liaison. Okay, they are the one who develop and maintain the network outside the office. And when you're talking about the decision roles, entrepreneurs, okay, resource allocators, negotiators, okay, so these are basically called as a decision roles. So overall management roles are divided into three parts, and that is how it works in the company. Now, when we're talking about the overall strategy, overall functions, overall information security is basically, or overall governance, create a three type of plan, because planning the process is very important. So we have a strategic planning, we have a tactical planning, and we have a operational planning. Okay, so process of developing, creating, implementing a strategy for the accomplishment of objective is called as a planning. So first is basically called as a strategic plan. So this is basically occur at the highest level of the organization and for the long period of time, usually 5 or more years. So that is called information security strategic plan. Second is basically called as a tactical plan, which is focused on protection of production planning, integrating the organization resource at the level below the entire enterprise, such as 1 to 3 years, like information security program. And then we have an operation plan, which is a procedures, which is part of our day-to-day activities, which is for the short term. Example like strategic plan is information security strategy, in which we have a cloud security strategy. For that, we introduce a cloud security program, and then we basically introduce a cloud security controls procedures. So strategy is a long term, tactical is a mid term, and operational is basically a short term plan. So if you go by the reference, this is the hierarchy we have, okay, of the organization, because governance is basically supported by the organization structure. A good governance driven by the good organization structure. So here we have a CEO. Now CEO responsible for creating an organization strategy. CIO based on that creating a IT strategy. CISO based on that creating an information security strategy. Then we have a security manager who creating a tactical plan. Then we have a security admin who implement the plan, and technical one who basically support the things. So every company is basically follow the top-down approach. Okay, every company is basically follow the top-down approach. CEO basically analyze the value of the business. Based on that, CIO creating their IT strategy, CISO creating their information security strategy to support the IT strategy, secure the IT strategy. Based on that, security manager creating their plan, then security administrator creating their operation plan, and technical is the one who implement the plan. So that is how the overall hierarchy works in the company. Okay, so next is, see, topic is talking about the information security governance framework. See, I cannot implement everything in a ad hoc mode, right? So I need to implement in a structure format. So if you're implementing information security governance in the organization, it includes multiple components. The first is called as a security strategy, which is integrated with the business goals. We create a 5-year plan. Like, if I join as a CISO, I have to create a 5-year plan, or I have to check what is the current information security plan. So strategy is basically a plan, what you're going to do in our organization. Then we governing the policies, like we cover all aspects of security, risk, compliance, and IT operations. Then we need to have a standard, because policy will be enforced with the help of standards and procedures which uniform across the organizations, where we need to implement what kind of a structure we have, which is called as a organization security structures. Then we need to introduce some kind of a monitoring mechanisms. So I will take you an example. Okay, so let's say example, you want to integrate anti-phishing training within the broader cyber awareness program. Okay, you want to integrate the security awareness training, or you want to implement the phishing training across the organization. So you enforce first policies. Hey guys, it is mandatory for all to attend this anti-phishing policies training or anti-phishing training campaigns and all that. So they introduce a policy. Now then we tell them, okay, I will attend, but how? What is the process? So we have to establish the process. for email filtering, user training on recognizing phishing attempts. And then we assign the clear responsibility, like, SOC analyst will monitor and block the phishing email. GRC team will adhere to the anti-phishing policy. Audit will check. And then we do the monitoring. Understood? So this is how we are implementing the information security governance in the organization. So always remember one thing. First, we create a security strategy. Then we create a policy. Policy is a foundation of any organization. Then we create a program. Program include all these activities. Any kind of a program you want to introduce, the first you create a strategy, then policies, then program. That is the hierarchy we follow. Okay, and when you're doing an audit also, first you audit the policy, then you do the program, and then you do the operation procedures. So exam tip is that you can expect some question how the governance frameworks ensure the business align with the security objectives, and be familiar with the framework components like policy, procedure, and security monitoring. I'll give one more example. Okay, every system must be protected with a password. That is a policy. Password must be 8 character. This is the process. That is called security standard and procedure. We implement this in an entire organization. That is called structure. And we monitor with the help of audit. So that's something you need to understand. So when you're talking about security governance is critical to IT function, because security report to IT report to the business. And if security will run as a separate function, then it is difficult for us to integrate. Actually, if you see the reality nowadays, CISO and CIO both are report to CEO. But it's a need of the company, because security should provide their initiatives on the business initiatives. But ultimately, who is accountable for security? Board. Okay, that something is there. So CISO report to the board on security strategy implementation. CISO, CIO, CTO, CRO oversee the security compliance and IT operations. And security policy reflect the business goals, risk appetite, and legal compliance. It's a statement of the management. So you should know the roles of executives. Like what is the role of CIO, what is the role of CTO, CISO, CRO. So remember one thing, CIO is ultimately accountable for IT. CTO is accountable for technology. CISO responsible for security, what he implemented. CRO responsible for explaining all the risk of IT securities to the board of directors. Okay, he is the one who explained, because CISO explained the risk to CRO. CRO is the one who explained the risk to the board. Okay. So be prepared for real world scenarios on security policy, enforcement, and governance effectiveness. Always remember, okay. So governance basically should ensure the security should support the business continuity. Risk cannot be eliminated, so we reduce the risk and comply with the regulatory requirement. The key challenge is how you balance the security measure with business need to prevent the disruptions. So you can expect some questions around how governance balance the security with business growth, and understand about how organization influence the risk management decisions. So security governance is not about compliance. It's all about ensuring security aligned with the business objective. And that will be the top priority in the entire CISA exam. Okay. Any question talking about goal of security governance and best way to demonstrate security governance is it should be aligned with the business strategy. Second is who drive the governance effort. Senior management board drive the governance effort with the structure, policy, monitoring, enforcement. Without their approval, you can't do anything in the company. And governance framework must be continuously evaluated to ensure the adaptability to the new threats and regulatory change. That something is part of a requirement. Now, next thing is called as a IT strategic planning. It's the next part. See, without planning of IT, you cannot implement IT in the organization, and CIO responsible for implementing a IT strategic plans in the organization. So IT strategic plan is all about aligning IT capability with the business goals. And make sure it should be synced with the overall business strategy to ensure the long-term relevance. See, CIO creating one plan, IT plan, but it is not aligned with the business. So they will not approve, the board will not approve. So when you're presenting any kind of a strategies and all that, you need to present the business case. Let's say example, you're preparing for CISA. Can you tell the board, okay, I want to do CISA for my personal growth? No. You have to tell that, okay, I'm doing a CISA. By this, I can able to upskill myself. And by this, I'm creating a value for you. In that case, there is a possibility they will approve your budget. Is it clear? So it's very important. Your plan should be aligned with the business strategy. It should create a value for the business strategy. So in dynamic nature, disruptive technologies, market trend required frequent strategy adjustment. And if you take a live example now, AI. 4 years back, there was no much buzzword around AI, but now it's a buzzword. So it doesn't mean I will not change the strategy. I have to change the strategy. Traditionally, the IT strategy, information security strategy, we create for 5 years. But now the IT strategy keep changing in 2 years, 3 years. We review strategy annually. Now, example, now we have a AI. Tomorrow we have a AI automations. We have a robotics. We have so many things which is coming in every 6 months. So we assess, validate, and then we amend in a strategy. So that is why strategy need to be reviewed annually. Okay, and modify in every 2 year, 3 year, depending upon the need of the business. So according to a good strategy is the one which can be modified as per the market trend and required review on a regular basis. So enterprise in a volatile environment benefit from a frequent IT change review to monitor and change the technology and customer preference and adapt to the regulator shift and the new risk. Now we have in India DPDP is there. So according to that we have to change the IT strategy. Okay, Saudi has a PDPL, data privacy law. According to that we have to change the IT strategy. Okay, now DORA is there. Okay, CIRA is coming. So many amendments are coming. So according to that, we have to change the strategy. A good strategy is the one which adapt to the business need. So you can expect questions around how the strategic IT planning, ensuring the adaptability to the business changes and technology change. That's something we have to look for. So now the next part is called as a key consideration for IT strategy. If you're building IT strategy, do I need to start from scratch? The answer is no. You can review the existing IT infrastructure for functionality, cost and location, risk and everything, and see what is the current and do the gap assessment. And then you evaluate the expansion and modernization needed. Depending upon the business agility and long-term stability. You are a kind of business which things get changed every 6 months. According to that, we have to change the IT strategy. So frequent planning cycle ensure agility in the competitive market. That is the success of IT strategy. And if you're looking for stable IT governance, it ensures the long-term reliability. And without management communication, we can't do that. So a good IT strategy is the one integrated with the business strategy. So you are an auditor doing an audit. What is the thing you need to validate? A good strategy. A good strategy is the one which integrates with the business strategy. So CIO, senior IT management involvement is critical to avoid the misalignment and everything. So expect here is scenario-based questions on misalignment between the IT and business strategy. And you need to understand about how the IT plannings helps the organization respond to emerging risk. That something is there. Okay, so next topic is called as a BI, business intelligence. Very important topic, not only in old syllabus, but also in the new syllabus. So first, as I said, in this domain, first we understand the concept and then we understand the audit perspective. So BI is a process of collecting, analyzing, visualizing the data to help the business to make a better decisions. In layman term, you can say we have a 5 year of data. We export that data or upload the data in any applications. They do the analysis and all that and provide me insightful report. Okay, in the month of December every year, this much amount of registrations we have. In the month of November, we have this kind of an attacks. So they will use the past data. The tool will use the past data, apply his knowledge and provide me some useful insights. Okay, so it turned the raw data into useful insights using a tool like dashboard, reports and analytics. In more simpler term, you can think of a BI like a dashboard in a car. It shows you speed, fuel level, engine health, so you can drive safely. Similarly, BI helps the business to see the performance, spot problems and plan ahead. Now, in the BI, the most important part, the collecting data, integrity of the data, because if you collect the wrong data, you might take a wrong decisions. So as an auditor, you should audit all the source of data, make sure it collecting and validating all the data effectively. So let's say example, when I say BI making a better decisions. Okay, so we have a real store or retail store, use BI to see which product sell best or stock them accordingly. Or it help you to identify trends, like same retail store, notice that most orders coming from mobile users, so they improve the mobile app. Understood? With the help of BI, we can able to manually analyze the data and we automate the reports. In a bank, we're using BI to detect the fraudulent transactions, right? So that's how it works. Or if you want to take one more example, imagine you run a restaurant. So it helps you to identify which dish sell the most, track the customer feedback, reduce the waste, plan the marketing. So BI is like a powerful telescope which help the business to see clearly and make the informed decisions. And according to that, we can able to plan it better. That something is part of the function. So as I said, you can expect some question how the BI tool assists in IT governance, risk assessment, performance monitoring. So BIA helps to understand the uncover new opportunities, understand the customer behavior, analyze the customer need, preference, market trend. So we can able to assess the business performance and we can able to track our KPIs to identify strength and weakness, which help you to improve our business decisions. So with the help of BI, we can able to do the better forecasting, financial management, risk analysis. But the most important is data. So source of data should be accurate, because if data source is wrong, it might take a wrong decision. So as an auditor, you have to validate the source of data. So you can expect some scenario question on how the BI support the IT strategic planning, compliance, risk management, and understand the BI role in the data analytics, fraud detections, and performance management. So how the BI works in IT audits. So with the help of BI, as I said, BI is used for measuring, analyzing, and improving a business performance. And why BI is crucial in enterprise, like many fundamental business questions require robust BI capability. And if you're looking for the cloud-based solutions, they enable data-driven, because data demand storage, BI demand computation, and we are using a cloud-based solutions for that, right? And when you're collecting data, it should be comply with the legal regulatories and all that. And we are using BI for detecting a fraudulent activity. So that's why auditors use BI to look for the suspicious attempts and all that, which help them to improve the audit practice. So you can expect some question on how the BI tool enhance the decision-making process and compliance monitoring and risk analysis. Okay. So summary is that IT strategic plan must align with the business goals. BI help the organization to make a data driven, make sure integrity of data need to be validated. CISA candidate must understand how BI integrate with IT governance. BI enhance the IT governance, risk management, compliance. Enterprise required structured architecture so that they can use the data for the better decisions. Metadata data stacking ensure high quality trustworthy data. If you have a wrong data, you might take a wrong decisions. And it can able to use for predictive analysis, fraud detection, and KPI tracking. What is predictive analysis? I already covered in domain 1. That's a very important part. Okay, next topic is called as the data architecture and enterprise data flow. It's very important. You need to organize data so that you know what is the type of data you have. So this is the layers we have. Okay, the first layer is presentation. Example, like they are function like a user facing a tool like spreadsheet, dashboard, and all that, from where you collect the data. Then we have a data source layer. You're collecting information from internal, external, non-operational. Then we have a warehouse, a group of databases called as a warehouse, where we store data. Sometimes what happens, we have a data mart layer also, which organize subset data for a specific business unit, because based on that, you can able to locate and identify the data. Then you also have a data stacking and quality layer. You can clean the data, you can transfer data, you can validate data before it load into the warehouse. We also connect the raw data to BI tool for analysis without require user to understand data organizations. That is called as the data access layer. Then we have a data preparation layer, which handle the data mining, trend analysis to extract the data. And then we have a metadata repository, which store the metadata and provide additional business context. So let me explain you the sequence. Okay. First is called as a data source layer first. Okay. Let's say example, you're working in Amazon. Amazon want to analyze customer purchasing trend so that they can recommend product. So this layer collect raw data from multiple sources. Like we have a internal, which is called website, external social media, non-operational like historical purchase record. So data is pulled from Amazon transaction database. That's the first thing. Pull information. Okay. The second is called as a data stacking, where the collected raw data is cleaned, transform, validate to remove the error and all that. If customer made duplicate purchase due to the checkout error, the system will remove the things. Third, the data go to the third is called as a data warehouse. Okay, where the clean data is stored in a structured format. Structured format. Okay. So the warehouse hold all the historical data, real-time data with different source. Example, like Amazon store structured data like order history, payment details, delivery tracking in warehouse. Then fourth is called as a data mart layer. Okay, where we divide the data into subsets. Example, the marketing team get the customer purchase history, the supply chain team get the inventory, and finance team get the revenue and profit reports. Then we have a data access layer. Okay, this layer connect the BI tool like Power BI SQL queries to fetch data without require user to understand technical database structure, and Amazon use Power BI dashboard to pull the sale trends without writing the information. That something is part of the function. Then sixth is basically called as a data preparation layer. This layer perform the data mining trend analysis. Like, Amazon has detected wireless earbud sales spike before Christmas. So this layer perform data mining trend analysis to identify the useful business insight. And then we have a seventh, which is called as a metadata repository. This store metadata such as definition, relationship, and all that. Let's example, metadata describe order date. It helps in understanding how data is processed and used. And then we have a ninth, which is called as a presentation. Okay, all this compiled data is visualized using a dashboard and all that. So, for example, Amazon CEO see the dashboard showing increased sales of wireless earbuds or declined sales in a smartwatch. So based on this, Amazon increased the spending on this. So this is the step-by-step process we have. So as an auditor, you should know what is the each and every layer, and according to that, we can able to validate the audit functions. Next topic is called as a IT strategy committee and IT steering committee, and is a very important topic actually. So when you're talking about IT strategy and steering, so how to remember? First of all, what is the difference between the committee and management? See, management is a permanent membership. It is there. Committee we create to execute a specific activities. You heard about a lot of news now. We setting up the committee for these issues. So committee is created for a particular initiatives and all that. So this is how it works is we have a board, then we have a strategy committee, and then we have a steering committee. Okay. So strategy committee provide insights and advice to the board on IT strategy, risk investments and all that. They are the one who advise board and management. They are the one who giving advice to board. Steering committee is the one who execute. Thin line difference is that. So I have one website which give you a good visibility. You can see we have a strategy committee, then we have a steering committee, and then they execute the projects. Can you see that? Same thing happen here. So any question in the exam talking about who create a strategy, IT strategy committee create, they advise to the board and management, board member external. So they can be, and committee include the members of the board also, because we are creating committee to execute the some functions. And steering committee is the one who execute the function in the operation level. They oversee the IT service delivery, strategy executions. The CIO, business unit executives, all are basically part of this committee. So exam tip here is, strategy committee is focused on high-level IT planning, vision and direction, and steering committee is focused on IT operations executions, which include the budget and resource allocation. That something is part of the function. So if you take an example, key roles of IT steering committee, they are the one who approve the IT budgets. Okay, they report the IT activity to the board. They suggest the IT risk management strategic IT decision-making process, align the IT with business goals, monitor IT resource conflict within department, ensure project deliver expected outcome, and major contribute to IT governance risk management. I know you're saying it report IT activities, it's look like a state. No, see, on behalf of the activities, they report the information to the board with the help of strategy committee. So you can say like that they are the who approve all the initiatives and everything. Understood? So here you can see advise and oversee. There's a difference. Okay. So that's the reason. If you find these key pointers in the exam, remember is these are basically part of the IT steering committee functions. If any kind of a security budget approved by the steering committee, it's a good thing, because steering committee is a group of all the individuals, business, security, IT departments and all that. So when they giving consent on this activities and all that, it's good. So it is good if they approve any budget. Now, there will be some questions on the IT organization structure. So we have a department like risk management, application, data, technical support, user support, and operations. Risk management include the risk security admin, disaster recovery coordinators. Application, we have a development managers, programmers, system analysts, quality assurance. Data, we have a data manager, database administrator. Technical, we have a network administrator, system administrator, and system programmer. User support, we have a help desk, system analyst, and all that. And operation is the operation manager, computer operators, and all that. That something is part of the function. Now in the organization, we have a two major role, data owner and data custodian. See, data owner is the one who own the data. Let's say example, this is the airport we have. Airport. Okay, so this is you. You carry your baggage to the airport. So you are the baggage owner. You inform the team, I'm traveling from Delhi to Kerala and this is my baggage. They ask you, is it something critical in the back? You said yes, put a fragile sticker on it. So ultimately you are the one who provide the value of the back. You are the one who ultimately accountable for your back. But who will manage the back on behalf of you, which is called airport team. Same like when you're sending any email in the organization, you are the data owner, and IT security team will manage the mail on behalf of you. They are the data custodian. So data owner is the one who assigns responsibility for protecting and managing data. They ensure the data is controlled, accurate and complete. This is the statement you need to remember. Accountability is key. An employee assigned must protect data integrity security. So CIO, IT manager lead the IT functions. Data owner ensure access control protection mechanism. Data custodian maintain and safeguard data but don't set the policies. Okay, so data owner, senior management is usually senior management, board directors. Okay, they are responsible for authorizing the access, ensuring data is updated and reviewing the access control. On the other side, data custodians are the IT people like system admin, analyst, operator, ensure data storage, backup and protection on behalf of data owner. So you should know the thin line difference between the data owner and data custodian responsibility, because it is testable in the exam. So data user like me who using data owner data, so the access must be authorized and monitor. Data owner authorize access and set the restrictions. IS auditor has to check, is the written authorization has been given? Is the data owner managing his data? Custodian is responsible for managing the data. He doing that or not? And security administrator handling the security parallelly. So new IT user must follow the security policy, report the violations, and auditor will audit that. Does he comply? Does he follow that? Does he review that? Does he give an authorization for his security policy and violations? So CISA expects some knowledge on the data ownership and classification. And please, one thing you need to remember, with the written authorization and proper approval are the key for the audit compliance. That something is very important. Now, next topic is called as a vendor and outsource management. Vendor management is very important. Supply chain is very important. What is the meaning? Let's say example, this is my company, which is called Infosec Train, where I work. Infosec Train. Now we are using, suppose, Zoom, or we are using GoToMeeting for our meetings, for our trainings and all that. So it is not something developed by us. This is something developed by other company. So for us, they are the vendor. We have to rely on them so that I can use that to do the meeting with my students or team members and all that. If this is unavailable, student will definitely reach out to us. Hey, that day we have a training, but Zoom was down and all that. So it's very important that you can transfer the responsibility, but you cannot transfer the accountability. So before you onboard any vendor, you have to do the proper risk assessment. If he's unavailable, what is the impact? If he take my data, what is the impact? So proper risk assessment need to be done for the vendor before you onboard them. And one more important thing, if you delegating any kind of a control to the vendor, that you should protect this data like this, you should keep the recording within the India, you need to bring that in a contract. Because anything you don't bring in the contract, no one will take the accountability. So make sure we have a vendor outsourcing management. So they act as a primary contact for vendor, escalate the IT service issues internally, and monitor the vendor SLAs, report to the management. And they review the contract changes and ensure the compliance. So in every company, there is a vendor management team. They are responsible for these 4 functions. They act as a primary contact for vendors, escalate the IT service issues internally, monitor the vendors SLAs, and review the contract changes and all that. If you want to outsource your security control, bring that in a contract. Like you want to audit, right to audit clause should be there in the contract. You want the data to be within the local India region and all that, you need to bring in the contract. Anything which is not in contract, no one will take the accountability. So there will be some questions testing on SLA governance, third-party risk management. So key point is CISO should report independently. Auditor should report independently in the organization. Okay, vendors contract must be reviewed to ensure they comply with the security requirement. Data center need proper access control, IT governance for security. And there is a new topic was added in the CISA new version is SCADA. SCADA is OT. We have a operational technology. One layman example is you have a machineries and all that, which is controlled by the IT functions. So one thing always remember is that OT, operational technology, is vulnerable for availability attack. Okay. So I'm sure you heard about the clash between the Ukraine and Russia. So they're targeting their SCADA OT plants. because they know if they take over the OT, they can manipulate anything. Like example, there's a water plant in your country and your neighbor nation has hacked into the plant, increase the chlorine level in that is possible. So availability is the biggest concern when it comes to SCADA. So when you doing an audit and all that, or from a CISA perspective, give more attention to the availability, priority, resiliency plan for SCADA. And the best control, we say that OT should be isolated from the IT by air gap system. So isolation is very important. And media security and removal storage protection is key concern because it can expose some data. Okay, because if anyone carry a mobile device or storage device, he can carry data outside of the thing. So make sure when you're keeping data in such kind of a storage, you should encrypt that. So we have some roles. So roles from the senior management perspective is very important. So when I say role of a senior management board in the information security, they are the one who giving us strategy directions. They assign the security responsibility, monitor the policy. They are the one who approve the policy, approve the budget. Without that, you can't implement the information security governance in the organization. And board director also accountable for enterprise-wide information security, oversee the risk assessment BIA. Okay, ensure the protection level, security control, and set the security culture and mandate the compliance from top to bottom. So if you get these pointers, remember this is the accountability responsibility of board. So you can expect some question about how the board ensure the alignment of security with business objective by doing a validations and everything. So we have some controls on the database level also. We can have a separation duty where one person will not perform end-to-end everything, because if one person doing everything, then there's a possibility he can commit a fraud. So SOD can prevent unauthorized access. DBA should approve everything and it should be oversight by the supervisory validations. Access log review, detect the unauthorized activity, check that if you want to validate is any access has been done in an unauthorized manner. And CISA often tests on the database, security control, audit login with the help of compliance test and substance test that we discussed in domain 1. And CISA can test on the access control IT environment like super user access must be restricted and monitored. That's something you need to understand. And you should be very clear with the difference between the security architecture and implementer. That also testable in the exam. All thing remember, whenever any kind of a change is required in the application, it need to go through a change management process. If they introduce a change, it is not been documented in the change control log, it is a non-compliance. So that's something we have to decide. And network security role is to implement the access control for routers, firewall, and remote access. That's something is required. You need to understand from the exam point of view. Separation duty actually. And there is one more important thing I added is senior management role in security governance. They are the one who implement the security strategy. They ensure ongoing leadership investment in the security and they balance the security cost with business effectiveness. So there are some exam pointers like board equal to security accountability oversight, senior management equal to security strategy execution. There's a ISSC is called Information Security Standard Committee, like cross-functional team, group of security business team. They are working together. Okay, who execute the functions, who making a decisions, and CISO is responsible for security leadership and compliance. That's something you need to understand. Next thing is separation duty in the IT as a side. As an integrity control, I want to make sure one person should not perform end-to-end everything. So we need a SOD. So one person create a bill, one person sign the bill, one person is approved. Same like in change management process, one person raise the ticket, one person review the ticket, one person approve the ticket. If one person doing everything, there is a possibility that he can commit a fraud. So we need to ensure the check and balance with the IT operations to prevent the fraud and errors. And we have some functions where the things need to be segregated, like custody of assets, prevent unauthorized use or misappropriate. So that need SOD. Authorization, ensure independent approval before executions, and make sure we record all the transactions. That something is part of function. So a single person should not responsible for both processing transactions and authorized sign-in. We have some risk associated with inadequate SoD if you implement the SOD. So there is a possibility that the SOD can be compromised. How? Like example, you and me working together. Okay. And things are already clarified that, okay, I'm responsible for creating a bill and you are responsible for approving the bill. Now I convince you, let's work together and work for the common mission, gain some profit, revenue and all that possible. So this is where the separation duty is compromised. So if we have an inadequate SOD, so this concept is called as a collusion. Okay. I convince him to work together to commit a fraud. So it's called a collusion. So if SOD is not implemented properly, so there's a possibility unauthorized access or theft happen. We can modify the records. You have seen the bank frauds and all that. Error on or the irregularity notice, tampering with the program data. So this is basically risk of the inadequate SoD. So as an IS auditor, you must assess whether SoD is properly implemented, and you have to validate with the help of logs. So if SoD is weak, audit should recommend compensating control. Let's say example, you and me working together commit a fraud. So they introduce a compensating control is mandatory vacation. So one has to take off in a year. So someone else will take over the job and review. Or we have a job rotation where the one person is moving from one department to other department. So by this, they cannot able to mingle and do the fraud. So these are things we need to have. So how to implement SoD in IT is restrict the system access to critical functions. Ensure independent review of transactions. Use RBAC systems. RBAC is role-based access. I am a database administrator. Based on administrator, I got access. You join as an application architect. You based on the application architect, you get access. So use the role-based controls and implement the monitoring control to detect the SoD. That something is part of things. So these are things that need to be managed. Okay, so next topic is called as a potential IT governance issue. See, as an auditor, you need to look for the issue so you can able to recommend controls and everything. So what kind of an issues we have with the IT governance? The first is called excessive cost. So IT projects may not be managed efficiently. Okay, budget overrun, where we have poor financial controls over the IT spending. Late projects indicate the project management or resource allocation issues. High staff turnover, where the possible poor management workplace issues are there. Inexperienced staff we have, where we could lead to security risk and compliance failure. Frequent hardware and software requests, like a lack of strategic IT asset planning. Excessive backlogs, numerous suspended projects. Frequent hardware software upgrades, unfollowed exception reports. So these are some common issues we have that we have to look for. As an auditor, you have to assess all this risk and recommend the controls. So when we auditing the IT governance, okay, so we review some documents. So that documents is a starting point of auditing the IT governance. Okay, so first I will check the IT strategy, plan, budget. Why? To check whether it is aligned with the business goals. I will look for the security policy. Why? Is it documented? Is it aligned with the security initiatives and business objective? I will look for the organization chart to make sure they have a clear reporting structures. I will audit the JDs to identify IT roles responsibility as well as JD people are working things and all. We look for the reports to evaluate their oversight, minutes of meet records, their involvement, and the system development change procedure. Will verify the logs and everything to check whether changes in the SDLs is going through the change management process. We look for the HR and QA procedure to verify compliance with HR quality control. Let's say example, I want to audit background investigations. Are the HR doing a background investigation? So I will ask for the last joining background investigation report. Because they have claimed they have did that, do they have a report for that? And that is how I will validate the HR and QA procedures. Is it clear? So as an auditor, I will verify the governance documents and I will look for three important things. First, is it authorized by the management? Is it up to date? And is it aligned with the organization objectives? That's something I will look for. Another important thing is the policy. As I said, policy is the foundation for any organization, right? So here, policy is a management need. Policy is a statement of an organization. Like as a management, as a board, I want my employees, my organization should respect security. So let's say example, I said, hey guys, everyone should protect the system with password. So that's a high level statement convinced by me to the board or to the people. So policy is always strategic in nature. Okay. High level management statement defining the expectation. All employee must follow password policy. Okay. So employee reach out to me, say, okay, sir, I will follow the policy, but what is a character? What should be uniform? So I say, okay, password must be 12 character with alphanumeric and special. That is called standard. Okay. How to create that? That's called procedure. And guideline is good to have. So policy, standard, procedure is mandatory. Guideline is good to have. Okay. So exam tip is policy and standard reflect the governance responsibility, procedure guideline reflect the operational responsibility, and auditor should ensure this IT policies and procedure review periodically. See, as I said, policy, information security policy is very important because it is a foundation for the information security governance. Okay. So why it is important? Because it provides a framework for security controls. If you want to audit security controls, you can basically start with the policy audit. Okay. With the help of policy, we can enforce the security best practice with defining a roles and responsibility and ensure regulatory legal compliance. So auditor must assess its information security policies to be aligned with business objective, It should be created by information security consultant, but be approved by the senior management, and review findings should be documented. That something is part of a requirement. So input for the Infosec policy is like feedback from the stakeholders, result from an independent audit, threat and vulnerability trends, regulatory change, review of security incidents. That something is required. And output from Infosec policy is that policy improvement, better risk management, strong security control, and efficient resource allocation. So information security policy must have a version control that can come through the change management process, and non-compliance risk should be addressed in the information security policy. Now, question is how to distribute the policy. So the question is, it should be in a common format, which is easy to understand. During an audit, we have to check that also. We also ask for the sample of communication email. Is the HR has conveyed that to all the employees? Restricted distribution, acknowledgement, compliance, all those things we have to look for. And information security policy should be regularly reviewed to ensure it aligns with the business objective, adapt to the security threats, and effectiveness of security control. So auditor must verify the information security policy distribution method. We have to make sure the policy is consistent across the enterprise, and we have to check also if policy is a document, review, and enforce. That something is part of the function. That's something we have to validate. Is it clear? Great. So summary is that policy, procedure, standard guidelines. So standard procedure guideline is the back support of policy. Standard is basically security compliance requirement. Mandatory, yes. We're taking a reference from ISO 27001 PCI NIST. Procedure is a step-by-step actions to implement the policies. Okay, data backup procedure and all that. And guideline is good to have, but it is mandatory. No, it is good to have, like password security guideline, remote work guideline, and all that. So as a CISA exam tip, standard set the rule, procedure enforce the compliance, and most important, guideline provide additional security. That something is part of a requirement. Okay, so next topic is enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture is a structure framework that document an organization IT assets. Okay, but before I jump into the technical, let me explain you with the live example. So I have a strategy that in 5 months, I want to reduce 10 kg weight. I have to create a strategy to reduce the weight 10 kg. Fine. Okay, for the strategy, we enable some activities like I have to go to gym, I have to do workout, I have to do yoga, I have to have a nutrition and everything. It's part of a strategy. But how to organize this strategy? So we have to create a workout plan. That workout plan arrange all these in a blocks, which help me to core it. Okay, after the gym, have a food. After the food, sleep. After sleep, you can have a yoga, and then you can. So workout plan help you to connect your strategy with your enablers. Okay, so same thing happen here. So when you are building a house, okay, this is your land on which you want to build a house. You want to construct a house. So first you design the house how you want. Here I want a balcony, here I want a room, here I want sofa and everything. So you will refer this particular framework, which is a desired state, and based on that current state, you build your things on this land. So by this way, you can able to save costs and everything. So enterprise architecture is like that. So IT strategy define how IT align with the business, but enterprise architecture provide a structure framework to implement the IT strategy. In layman term, you can say IT strategy say what should we do, and enterprise architecture will say how should we do. There's a difference. Is it clear? Like what technology investments, innovations is required. That is basically part of the IT strategy, but how technology process should be structured and executed, that is part of an enterprise architecture. You can say IT strategy talk about the business goals. Enterprise architecture talk about the implementation. Okay, think of IT strategy like a CEO vision, while enterprise architecture is like a blueprint and execution of plan. Example, building a smart city. So we want to build a sustainable smart city with smart traffic control and renewables energy. That is my strategy. But defining a technology is data governance, network architecture, and IT system to support the smart city. That is basically called as an architecture. Okay, and if you want more practical example is, let's say example, you're working for Amazon. So Amazon want to expand the e-commerce to improve the customer experience. So first they define the IT strategy, what to do, like AI power, recommendation, cloud-based scalability and all that. Okay, so we set the business driven goal. Now enterprise architect design the technical framework. I use AI ML, use Redshift, microservices and customer data protection. So that's how it works. So if you get any question in the exam, what is the document which you use to enforce IT strategy in the organization? Then answer is basically enterprise architecture. Or another example is, I want to build a technology. So first I need a business. Then I need to understand the data which support the business. Then I need to understand the application that support the data. And then I will buy the technology. So by organizing this architecture, I can able to create a value instead of first buy a technology and then I will look which application can support that. No. So enterprise architecture provide the structure roadmap for implementing a IT strategy efficiently. Is it clear? So enterprise provide the clarity by aligning the IT with business function. It help in understanding, managing, planning the IT investment, and also aligning the IT strategy with business goals. And it is also assist in adopting decision making for IT modernization, software integration, cloud adoption. So when you're implementing EA, we identify investment with ROI, we aligning the IT with business, we optimize the IT resource allocations because we can reuse the IT for other things. And one of the framework that we use is Zachman framework, which is developed by John Zachman. And it is not testable, but it's just for your reference we have. So next is called as a ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. So it is a strategic process which integrating a risk management in the organization strategy. Let's say example, this is your risk management process. So it is integrated in the vendor management, it is integrated in the SDLC, it is integrated in the business process, it is integrated in the information security. So we have integrated that. So tomorrow when we onboard any vendor, we do risk assessment first. You're building any application, you do risk assessment first. You're going for new business, you do risk assessment first. You're adopting any kind of a control, you do risk assessment first. So risk management is integrated in the business process. So ERM is a strategic process for identifying, analyzing, mitigating risk. And it helps to align the risk strategy with business objective. Ultimate goal is to reduce risk to an acceptable level, and it reduces risk to an acceptable level. That is the ultimate goal. So ERM is not an audit function, but management driven process. So in the ERM, one more important statement, we have a risk appetite and risk tolerance. It's a very important thing. Okay. So let's say example, there is a one statement we also call risk capacity. Let's say example, your monthly salary is $4,000. That is a maximum risk that you can take in a month. You decided on the training, you will spend $1,000. That's your risk appetite. That is a risk appetite. And now you're doing the current training, which is your risk tolerance, which is like 1,200. So you will apply the necessary control to bring the risk tolerance below the appetite. So risk tolerance is always variable in nature. One more example, like you want to ride a car and this is the road. This is your car. So maximum speed is 170, which is a capacity. Speed limit is basically 70, but 90 you are driving. That's your current risk tolerance. So when you are running a startup and all that, your risk tolerance is high. When you are a fresher, you take more risk, right? So in that case, your risk tolerance is high. But when you are conservative, you have a lot of liabilities, your risk tolerance will be low. So risk capacity is a maximum risk. Risk appetite is a level of risk that you take to pursue the mission and mission. And risk tolerance is the kind of a deviations we have. So based on a risk tolerance, we can drive all the functions. Okay, so level of risk the enterprise is willing to accept to achieve the business objective, that's a risk appetite. And risk tolerance is the acceptable deviation from a risk appetite the enterprise can withstand without compromising goal. So always remember one thing, if the risk going beyond the capacity, we avoid the risk. If the risk below the capacity, we implement the control to bring the risk below the appetite level. That's something you need to understand. Okay, and that's something is an important parameter. So when we're talking about enterprise risk management, the practice that it should be aligned with the business goals to support the organization objective and risk appetite. That's why my all initiatives is as per the risk appetite. We embed the risk awareness culture. We promote the risk aware cultures across all the enterprise. We use data-driven practice and we have a continuous improvement. So in the overall enterprise risk management, we have a 4-step process. The first step is basically called as the IT risk identification. In this step, we identify the threat, we identify asset, and we identify the vulnerability. At this particular stage, we know there is a risk. Then we analyze the level of risk by doing a qualitative and quantitative risk assessment. In my domain 1, I have explained that IT risk assessment, where I analyze the likelihood and impact and prioritize. And then we decide how to mitigate. So we have 4 options. And then once you mitigate, once you treat the risk, you do the continuous monitoring to make sure it should not go beyond that. So when we're talking about risk identification, we have 3 types of risk. One is called operational level risk, the risk affecting your IT system, infrastructure, compliance and security. Then we have a project risk, like project running out of time and all that. And then on the strategic level, which impact your overall organization strategy. So you can expect some scenario-based question on managing IT risk across a different level of impact. So we have a 4 type of treatment when you're dealing with the risk. The first is called risk avoidance. Like, I know my current training cost is above my salary, so I'll drop the idea. I will not go for that opportunity now. So I will avoid the opportunity that brings risk to the company. That's called risk avoidance. Mitigating by implementing control. I'm transferring a risk to third party, which is called insurance. Okay, and acceptance is like a continuous operations. Okay, so that's why you can see avoid is eliminating a risk by not engaging in the activity. Mitigating means reducing the impact, likelihood of risk by implementing control. Transferring a risk to third party, and accepting risk because risk is below the appetite level, or I believe the cost of control is higher than cost of risk. I know the training cost is more than certification cost. In a second attempt, I will definitely clear, but there's no point of paying $5,000 for CISA training, right? So we accept the risk, and with that, I went for the exam. So that something is part of a requirement. Okay, so next topic is called as a privacy. Privacy is a state of information, deal with individuals. Secrecy is a state of information, deal with the enterprise. So now, as we know, like a lot of countries are introducing their data privacy regulations. So as an auditor, you should be familiar with all this data privacy practice. And the way we're creating an information security management system, same like we're creating a privacy management program, which has all the documents and everything. So privacy documentation is essential for ensuring comply with privacy law, because you need to demonstrate, if any audit comes, you need to demonstrate, yes, we're complying with your regulations. How? By showing them evidence. Evidence is what? Documentations. And it helps you to build that trust with the stakeholders, and it can help you to align the internal policy procedure with external privacy notice, and maintaining a regular review to meet the privacy requirement and everything. So one important thing here is called as a privacy notice. It is an external document that explains how enterprise collect, store, share personal data. That's why you visit any websites, they say, this website's collecting your data with these reasons and all. They're giving a notice. Without notice, if you're collecting, it's a compliance issue. So privacy notice establishes the legal accountability for data protection, ensure compliance with privacy law regulation, and provide the transparency in data collection, processing, and sharing. So question is how privacy notices are presented by websites, in the form, in the brochures, healthcare notice explaining how patient data has been used, contract agreement. So as an auditor, you need to review these documents on a regular basis. Okay, periodic review should be done. We have to check the policies are basically approved and make sure it align with the global privacy law. So when auditor doing an audit on this privacy document, they have to check this. So privacy document should have a version control for integrity purpose. It should be reviewed annually, or in the case of major change in the version, and it should be properly enforced. So we will validate with the help of audit. So we have some key elements in the privacy notice. The first is called data collection. So we have to give a specification, what data you're collecting and why. How data is basically used, how long you need to retain. You need to remember one thing, if you retain for more than which is defined, then you are accountable for all the issues. If tomorrow any data breach happen, you are accountable for that. So the best way you can able to protect yourself from any kind of a data privacy compliance is limit in the collection of data. And once the data is collected, once the business is over, delete the data. Then you also need to define the method how you dispose the data. You need to ensure data handling follow the policies, and user rights should be maintained. Now data collection mean, example, I'm conducting one webinar. I'm collecting email address. It's okay that something is required, but I'm collecting a house address, does not make sense. So I will collect only data which is required, and I'm collecting data for webinar. That is called processing and handling. I took a promise from you, I'm collecting data for a webinar, and tomorrow I'm sending a mass mails, marketing emails. It's against the compliance. So you collect what is required and you only process what is required. Is it clear? That's the most important part. And the best way you can comply with any privacy requirement is collect the limited data. In some cases, we have a consent form. When is consent required is obtain consent for existing personal data or renewing the consent if non-compliant. So there is a signed consent form is there alone, does not establish the adequate consent process. So informed consent is an ongoing exchange of information between the enterprise data subjects, like by QA sessions or by the email meetings. So we also have a PIM, personal inventory, information inventory. So why? Because it helps you to document, collect, derived what you have. And tomorrow any audit happen, it can support for your privacy data protection measures. And it is not a regulatory requirement, but it helps the enterprise to manage the privacy risk. Is it clear? And it include, data flow mapping, regulatory updates and everything. That something is part of the requirement. Now, we also have other type of documents. Okay, it's not we are covering, but we need to have a document privacy management activities to support the compliance with the legal regulatory requirement. And by having this, we can able to provide the transparency in their privacy operations. So we have a logs like activity logs, track the privacy training attendance, identity verification. So we have to collect in such a way it should not breach the privacy. Then we have a data protection legal requirement. Enterprise must document all the privacy legal requirement. We assess how the personal data is collected, used. That come under the privacy risk assessment report. We also have a PIA which evaluate the risk associated with handling of personal data, how you collecting, why you collecting. And then we have a privacy governance report which track and do the improvement in privacy risk over the time. I repeat again, these are the different type of documents we have, like data protection legal requirement, where we document all the privacy legal requirement. Like for GDPR, we have some document minimum requirement we need to maintain. Then privacy risk assessment report, we document about how the percentage is collected, used and all that. PIA talk about the level of risk that we have in the privacies, and overall how you tracking everything. That is part of the privacy governance report. The most important thing is that the weakest link in the organization is people, and that will be improved with the help of awareness and training, because that is how you can able to improve the behavior. And it is very important to document the privacy training also, because it demonstrated you care. And tomorrow if any audit happen, you can able to tell them, yes, we have this training logs. We do the regular trainings on data privacy. So your training logs include training and topics, date and time, attendance list, training delivery method, quiz and all that. And if any security breach happen with data privacy and all that, if we conducted regular trainings and everything, they can report this incident as early as possible. So I join as an employee. I was not aware about a system having some malicious activity to report that. I was an impression it's IT responsible. No. So in the awareness training, we get to know what is your responsibility toward the organization. So that's why the best way to you can demonstrate that you have a great awareness and training is increase in the incident report and decrease in the security violations. Okay, example, after awareness training, people are reporting more incident. It can be true, it can be false, but at least they're reporting. So increase in incident report, decrease in a security violation. So that is how you can able to measure the things. So we have an incident register, so which log your personal data incidents and prevent the future breaches. So data incident register must include your facts about the incidents, impact of the breach, and remedial and preventative measures. So maintaining a log is crucial for compliance and forensic investigation also. That's something we do actually. Along with that, we have a privacy audits. We audit all the documents. Why? To check are we complying with the legal regulatory requirements. So we have annual data protection audits actually, which assess the compliance with data protection, enterprise-wide privacy control, effectiveness of privacy training and awareness. So privacy audit should be systematic and documented for regulatory inspection. That's the reason we do the audit. Ultimately, to comply with the business and legal regulatory requirement. So in data privacy, one most important thing is called as the transborder. Transborder mean we have India and this is my Europe. Let's say example, okay. Let's say example, this is my Netherlands and this is India. So data is moving from India to Netherlands. This concept is called as a transborder data flow. So if India moving data to Netherlands, it should be comply with first with India norms, that is it allowed to move outside. And then we have to check is it allowed as per Netherlands law. So Netherlands is complying with GDPR. We have a customer in Europe. Can I move data from Netherlands to India? So we have to respect the law of the land there and then the law of the India. So transmission data between two countries. Okay, it can be done with the help of cables and all that. So we have some key concerns about transborder data flow. First is different country have a different legal requirement. Second is while collecting, maintaining integrity and security. That's something is most important part we have. Then regulations. Okay, some countries receive the personal data transfer like GDPR has the requirement. They cannot able to process any data outside of their country where the privacy regulation is not equivalent to them. Some have a restriction on encryption. In my country, this encryption is allowed, but in the destination country, it is not allowed. So certain nations have regulate or prohibit data encryption methods. So it is important the Indian communication data routing is not fixed. So it may be cross-country border unexpectedly. So it affects the compliance and the security. So as an auditor, you have to check all this parameter before concluding any control. So this is in the part 1. Do let me know your feedback. How do you find this video? Building such content is required a lot of efforts. So I'm not saying, okay, you should subscribe to my channel. If you think it is worth you getting a better content in free than any Udemy videos or any paid trainings, do let me know in the feedback is something you can give free. You don't need to pay for that, right? But that feedback helped me to improve my content, because you are my gladiator. Without you I'm nothing. Remember, Prab is nothing without you. So your support is required. If you think it is worth, you can share your suggestion. Otherwise, that's also fine. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. So in my next video, I'm going to discuss about the part 2 of the domain 2. Thank you so much. Good day. Bye. So part 2, and this is the part 2 of the domain 2. I'm sure you have watched my part 1. So in the part 2, we're going to discuss about the management. And in this section, we're going to discuss about how the 2 basically works and all that. And thank you for sharing a great response on the part 1. And I'm sure you have enjoyed. So in the part 2, we're going to cover about the IT management, include the IT resource management, IT vendor management, IT performance monitoring and reporting, quality assurance and quality management. Confirm, quality assurance, quality management is very important. IT performance monitoring, reporting is very important. IT vendor management is important. So when it comes to IT management, so governance is all about setting a direction. Management is all about implementing a direction. So when it comes to IT resource management, now why it is critical? Because if you don't able to manage, you cannot able to run. So it helps the organization to optimize the limited resource. Sometimes because when those who are working in the IT, they know when it comes to the budget for information security in IT, it always run with a limited portfolio, right? So it is basically very important to see how you're optimizing IT, and ultimately is to ensure the optimized IT should be aligned with and the investment should be aligned with the business goal. So as a CISA exam tip is that IT investment should consider financial benefits like reducing the cost, increasing the revenue, non-financial benefit like customer satisfaction, opportunity cost, evaluating trade-off and all that. And I will give best example of that. Nowadays we are using chatbot AI. So we have integrated the chatbot AI with our Infosec train website, let's say example. So I don't need to make my employee to sit on Saturday and Sunday. The chatbot AI will answer the questions. So this is how it increasing customer satisfaction, strategy objective, reducing the cost and increasing revenue because I'm using on automations. And it helped me to evaluate my trade-off for IT spending. So as an IS auditor, you should assess whether enterprise is in a position to achieve the maximum value from IT investment by checking the reports and everything. Now question is, how you can see the value of IT investments? Only by 2 ways. So how is the IT project is value determined? First is based on a cost benefit analysis. Second is greater benefit related to the cost equal to higher project value. I repeat again, based on the cost benefit analysis, we will see whether it's good or not. And second is we'll see the greater benefit related to cost equal to project. It means we look for the relative cost based on a higher project value. So when you're managing the multiple projects in the company, we call it as a IT portfolio. Managing multiple projects, it's called as a IT portfolio. So we have a dedicated process called as a IT portfolio management. We ensure the enterprise IT project aligned with the business goals, group of projects are aligned with the business goals, and it required the strategic framework for evaluation because we have to see the holistic view. So the key steps we have here is management commitments. Okay, portfolio model planning, because you have to plan, might be this project which is coming in January can be moved to February, and the August project we can do first. So by portfolio, we can manage that. And we have to define the criteria, what need to be executed first. Also, we need to describe the roles, tasks, and decisions, and organizations also require tools and support to support the decision. So IT portfolio is different from IT financial management because IT portfolio is a strategic and focus on investment decisions. Okay. And then based on that, we can involve the IT financial management to plan things effectively. But you can say IT portfolio decision should be flexible. It should not be rigid. Okay. It should be aligned to the business strategy for the changes. That something is a part of a requirement. So what is the role of IT management? So IT is integrated across the business operation to increase the revenue, create a value and all that. And by the IT governance, ensure the compliance and efficiency. So as a CISA exam, you should ensure that IS auditor should review the IT policy procedure by focusing on the effectiveness of IT governance framework. We also have a HR related IT controls like hiring, training, access management. Whenever any employee join the organization, according to access control, we give access. And compliance with the IT security policies. That something is part of a requirement. So that's why we say a well-managed IT department is crucial for achieving the enterprise objective. In the organization, one of the practice we call it as a HR practice. Now listen carefully, okay? When any employee join, HR will do the background check of the candidate before we hire the candidate. And it is called as a preventative control, because once he join, if he do something wrong, it is backfire them. That's the reason. Second important thing is that if we find something suspicious activities and all that, we will terminate him. So HR has to implement disciplinary actions like implementing a PIP plan, provide a structure measurable corrective actions, and HR environment in a disciplinary action ensure they are fair and documented process. That's something we have. Sometimes we also need to enforce a mandatory vacation job rotation. So example, in the separation of duty, the person has to be away from a workplace for a while and someone else will take over the work to review his work. Or if we found something suspicious fraud activity, we enforce the mandatory vacation there. So someone else will take over the job. So by having a mandatory vacation and job rotation, we can reduce the opportunity fraud and also detect the fraudulent activities. So mandatory vacation and job rotation mitigate the internal fraud risk by preventing employee from covering up the long-term fraudulent activity. See, mandatory vacation we can still apply because person will be take off and he'll join back. But in job rotation, person has to move from one company or one branch to other branch. In the banking sector, you have seen that. But implementing job rotation in a small company is always a tough task. Now, any employee involved in any kind of fraudulent activity, we have to terminate them, and it has to be done as per the termination policy. So it should be clearly defined steps for both voluntary and involuntary terminations. We need to have a secure removal of IT access, physical access, and so we follow some key controls. Example like return all enterprise devices, ID cards and access keys, revoke the login credential and application access, notify the IT and security personnel immediately. We finalize the payroll removals and conduct the exit interview. And the special case we have, like in advanced situation, escort the terminated employee to ensure we have a secure exit. Make sure when employee resign, he has to return all his assets, and we need to escort them for the secure exit. In the entire organization, the change management process play a very important role. Change management process play a very important role because it track the integrity. Now let's say example, we conducting the training, and this training is scheduled for next week, and we're doing this online training. Let's take example, we're doing this online training. I am at home and you are in the organization here. So we are doing some trial on Friday. Monday trainings to be started, and Friday we're doing a trial. So when I'm connecting to the Zoom, you also trying to connect, but the firewall is blocking your connection. So I'm facing regular issues. So what I did, I report this issue to the HR team. I think I'm unable to connect to the participants. HR also raised this concern to the IT team. IT found some issues from the security side, so they raised this issue to the firewall team. They did the root cause, they identify some ports are blocked on the firewall, and we have to enable that. It's not something, okay, we can simply enable like that. No, we have to raise a change request for that. We test the change, we validate the change, and then through that, we introduce this control change in the organization. And by this, we can able to track the documentation, track the integrity, who introduced the change, why they introduced, what is the reason of that. So by having this kind of a process, we can able to track the accountability. So why enterprise change management is important? Because it ensure the IT is aligned with the business need and reduce the resistance to the technology change. So and we have a two type of change. One is called normal change, which go through the emergency process and all that. And then we have an emergency change, which we first implement, then raise a change request. So have you seen the Munna Bhai MBBS movie? They say, na, in the case of emergency, do I need to fill the form first? Same thing happened in the hospital, right? So one is that simply you came for the treatment to fill the form, and then in the case of emergency, first we treat the patient and then we raise the form and all that. So same like change management required in enterprise level in all three levels: people, process, and technology. If you're introducing changes in the policy, we first change the change request. If you're introducing changes in the access management, change request. So it's very important, and track the integrity also. So senior management commitment to changes need to be documented. User feedback collection during implementation, that's why we need a change management. And user acceptance testing and training, that's demand change management. And clear communication. So all these are basically part of a change management. And if you don't have that, and if you're introducing any change without change management process, it can backfire also. It can lead to the availability, integrity, and confidentiality also. So without structured change management, IT projects risk failure due to the user resistance and poor adoptions. So in the governance, another important process is very important, is called as a financial management process. Because whatever the IT we are implementing, it should be within a limited budget and all that, and ensure the cost control and optimal resource allocation we have. So as a CISA exam practice, so we need to have a different kind of a financial management practice. Like one is called chargeback model, where we allocate the IT cost based on a usage. Cloud, today we are using the same thing. Whatever you use, you will pay for that. Second is budget forecasting. Whenever you're starting any new project, first you do budget forecasting. You link the IT spending to business objectives. Third is basically called as a software cost classification. We have to distinguish between the OPEX and CAPEX. OPEX basically mean you pay for the operation expenses. CAPEX mean you're upfrontly paying something for hardware capital. Let's say example, I'm building a data center. Okay. So I have to invest capital in everything. We have a lot of money to be invest initially first. So instead of that, I'll go for the cloud. In that, I just need to hire people. That's my operation expenses to manage the systems and all that. So when we're doing a shift from on-prem to cloud, it's a shift from CAPEX to OPEX only. So this is very important. So as an IS auditor, you need to verify how organization track their IT expenses and ensure the compliance with financial standards. Now, why we need to classify IT expense correctly? Because it helps the organization track the software development cost. It ensures compliance with the international accounting standards. And we have different kind of a cost. So software costs are classified part of two categories. One is called operational expenses, which is day-to-day. And one is called capital, which is called long-term IT investment. Is it clear? Because see, when you buy a hardware, it is a CAPEX. You cannot take it back. But in the OPEX case, tomorrow you want to discontinue, you can discontinue. So it's very important. You need to capitalize the software expenses to demonstrate the probable future economic benefit. And IS auditor has to verify how software developments are recorded. Do they creating any kind of functions for that? So another important thing, we talk about the cloud governance. Before I jump into the cloud governance, let me first explain you cloud. So let's say example, this is my customer. Okay. And I decided as a customer to use AWS cloud. Okay. So when I say cloud plus computing. Cloud is like an internet. Computing is basically mean technology, process, application that you can access from anywhere. So one thing you need to understand, you're a customer, a bank, and you guys have decided that you will use CRM, which is hosted on the cloud. Okay. So there is a data subject who came to bank to open the account. So bank has collected his Aadhaar card, passport and everything, and he provide all the data. And based on that, they're creating a CRM entry, which is stored in the cloud. Now you tell me in the comment box, if tomorrow any security breach happen in the cloud, who is answerable to data subject? The answer is customer. The bank. Who is answerable to regulatory authority? Bank. So when you outsourcing your IT operation to cloud, you cannot outsource the accountability. You can only outsource the responsibility. So second thing is that when you're moving data in the cloud, you're losing your control from your on-prem to cloud. So it's very important. You need to have a strong governance with the cloud, and that is only achieved with the help of contract. So one exam tip is when you're moving data in the cloud, encrypt the data, segment the data, and amend all the requirements through the contracts. And managing a cloud is called as a cloud sourcing. So ensure security, compliance, risk management need to be addressed. Set up the clear responsibility. As a customer, what is my responsibility? As your provider, what is your responsibility? So your key governance include the cloud risk management strategy, cyber controls, cloud resilience, vendor lock-in. What is vendor lock-in? Now you are using a platform as a service, one of the cloud. So you're migrating your application on the cloud. Tomorrow you want to move from one cloud to other cloud. So because of dependency, you cannot able to move. Because of their application compatibility, you cannot able to move. So that is called vendor lock-in. You will stick with the vendor for a particular time frame. So you are introducing some open APIs, you're trying to amend in the contract that, okay, it need to be moved. So this is how you can able to prevent the vendor lock-in. Is it clear? Then we have a retention of enterprise responsibilities, because you can transfer the responsibility data, but you are accountable for data. So make sure your outsourcing agreement does not transfer ultimate responsibility data security compliance of enterprise to the vendor, and we have to validate everything. So what are the key aspects of outsourcing governance? Ensure service continuity, cost and risk, and align the expectation between the client and vendor. So what is the effective outsourcing governance look like? First, include the contractual viability. Make sure, set the expectation. Second is define the SLA, like level of service agree between the two parties. That is a very important part. Define the roles, like in the case of dispute, who will responsible for what. Allocate the IT resources based on a business priority, and continually evaluate the provider by asking for service level report. Actually, we have a three things: service level agreement, that is a service level requirement that when customers share the expectation, then we agree, which is called service level agreement. Is it deliver what is agreed? That's called service level report. So without proper governance, outsourcing can lead to the compliance failure, security gaps, increase in operation risk. So that something is part of a requirement. Okay, that's a very, very important part that you need to check. Okay, I repeat again, without proper governance, outsourcing can lead to the compliance failure, security gaps, and increased operation risk. So how can enterprise mitigate the cloud? So develop the cloud risk management strategy and implement the strong cybersecurity controls. And to reduce the cloud outsourcing risk, enterprise should ensure the vendor compliance with security policies, monitor the vulnerabilities, incident response process, and more important, define the structured reporting and communication channel. Like there should be a proper communication channel should be there. So one thing always remember, data security GRC, you as a cloud customer responsible. Physical security is the responsibility of the cloud provider. Okay, so enterprise must retain overall responsibility to cloud security risk management, even third parties handling your operations. So now cloud is the third party for you. So you have to make sure your business should be aligned with outsourcing. So why business alignment crucial in outsourcing? Because it ensures the IT service reflect the business need, and more important, we drive this performance and user satisfaction. So as a CISA exam tips, to effective business alignment, enterprise should define the SLA OLA. That's the first thing you will check. Like example, my expectation is the Zoom link must be active whenever it required. I can use that. So that will document same in the SLA OLA with the vendor, that it must be available whenever it required. Identify all the core versus non, because it's not possible for me to outsource everything. So I will identify what is important, what is not. And then we demand the changes as per the governance process. So governance must be pre-planned and integrated into the outsourcing contract to optimize the cost and minimize the risk. So what should the IS audit review in outsourcing contract? So first is right to audit clause, because as a customer, I have a very limited visibility in the cloud. So I can amend the right to audit clause in the contract by which I can do the audit. And second is compliance with the security data protection standard. So as an IS auditor, you should verify vendor audit rights, implement internal security control, and document the SLA. And failure to audit the vendor control can lead to security breach. So yeah, you have to look for that. That's a very important part. Is it clear? Okay. So next thing is called as a third-party service delivery management. Third-party service delivery management is we subscribe to MSSP and all that, he providing me some services. That is called third-party service delivery management. Do I need to manage the risk? Definitely, because by end of the day, you are the one who accountable. So how should enterprise manage the third-party services? Like implement the vendor service management and to comply with the service agreement. So let's say example, we have a regulations that we have, like if any security breach happen, I have to report the breach in 72 hours. So I'm expecting same from a service provider to provide me the same commitment. So when you're managing the vendor, in this case, we monitor the performance against the SLA. That's the first thing. Second, we review the vendor reports where we conduct the progress meeting and everything. We also assess the security incidents. Okay, audit the vendor compliance. And more important, I will try to resolve the identify issues and track disruption. So these are some of the vendor management tasks. We have to do that. Okay, so let us say example, I'm a vendor management team representative. So before we onboard the vendor, we monitor the performance. Like he told me the uptime will be 99%. Is it there? We monitor the vendor reports. We assess the security incident. We resolve the identify issues. So all those things is part of the function. So third-party service management should be proactively reviewed to mitigate the operational and security risk. That something is part of a requirement. So what are the best practice for vendor service modification? So we reassess the risk and compliance impact. We ensure the alignment with the business and critical process. Why is change management critical in third party? Because to ensure the business continuity, service compliance, security compliance, and we reduce the risk associated with the IT service modification. So if any changes in the vendor, it should involve updating the security policies, reviewing the service performance, and ensure the compliance with the regulatory standards. And the changes to third party service should address the enhancement of current services, policy updates, and vendor subcontractors. So if you don't do this, then it compromises the regulatory functions and everything. So when you're doing all these IT functions and all that, we need to do the monitoring properly. Why IT performance measurement essential? If you get any question, ultimate goal of IT performance measurement, just to align the IT investment with business objective. Company has approved the budget of 2 CR or $2 million. So with the help of IT performance monitoring, we will check is the budget has been utilized properly or not. Is it able to creating the value what they agreed? So it help you to align the IT investment business objective, and more important, it can able to demonstrate the ROI, return of investment, and efficiencies. So as a CISA exam tip is performance metrics should be there, which track the business value and competitive advantage. We can able to measure the IT efficiency and effectiveness, and it can be linked to the employee incentives and rewards. So sharing the IT performance result with stakeholder enhance the transparency and accountability. But the question is how? We can do with the help of KPI, KCI, and KRI. KPI stand for key performance indicator. KCI stand for key control indicator. And KRI stand for key risk indicator. Without good KCI, KRI increase, which can harm the API. So let's understand in a more layman term. So here we can see KPI measure the success of website availability. So KPI introduced to measure the business success. So my expectation was 99.9% uptime. KRI identify potential threat. So if there is an increase in the login attempt, so it's called measure the potential risk. And third is called KCI, measure the security control, like MFA enable for 98% user, which measure the effectiveness of the security control. So in layman, you can say KPI tell if business is performing well. KRI warn about the threats that can impact the KPI. And KCI basically show if the controls are working to keep the risk low. So one thing is that if KRI, okay, like example, failed login attempt. If KRI is failed login attempt, increase. If more login increase, it alert the team before cyber attack affect the customer. If KCI is low, if MFA adoption is low, the business know it is a risk, it must be take action. If the KPI drop, so we have to look for what is the reason, like check out the failure increase. So leadership can act before the, revenue loss and everything. So it's very important, all are integrated. Understood? This is all are integrated. So KPI tell us if we are meeting goal, KPI warn us if risk threaten our goal, and KCI ensure security controls are keeping the risk low. So by following this, we validate the things. So how to set that? Let's say example, we first define the business goal. My goal is ensure 99.99% website uptime. This is my success look like. And then I will set the KPI. Website uptime is suppose website uptime should be like 99%. Okay. And checkout success rate is basically 98%. Okay. So we measure if business is running efficiently. Then we have a KRI, what can go wrong. So we see increase in a failed login by 10%. So risk is in a bot traffic is 20%. So it detect early warning sign of failure. Then we see, are we really control secure by setting a control indicator? Yeah, MFA is there, load balancer is there. So that's how we basically set. Okay. So it's very important that we need to have this visibility, otherwise it's a problem. Okay, so next is called as a KPI. Why are KPI important? Because it ensures the IT process align with the business objective, and we measure the service efficiency and user satisfaction. Okay, so KPI should be quantified, like IT service performance, indicate the process effectiveness, and act as a performance driver. So high employee satisfaction KPI suggests IT department is meeting the business need. Opposite is wrong. So as an auditor, we should validate the KPI measurement is based on reliable quantifiable data. If I say the website uptime should be 99%, is they measuring based on 99%? Do they have a structured process? And KPI is aligned with the enterprise risk and compliance framework. So change control process use KPI to track the performance. So KPI are integrated into the IT governance framework. Now why our KRI is important? Because it gives the early warning, are we achieving or not? So we track the security risk, we define the threshold, we assign the monitoring responsibility. So KRI must be actionable. So threshold has been breached, so corrective measure should be initiated immediately. So audit perspective is KRI should be aligned with the business risk and IT threats. Alerts are effectively communicated to relevant stakeholders, and make sure there should be a structured incident response mechanism for high risk events. So that's something, we take for the functions. That something is part of the functions. The next thing is called as a performance optimization. Now, why performance optimization is crucial? Because it ensures the maximum IT efficiency. Example, I decided to use cloud. So I'm going to use maximum to create a good revenue. Okay, so we ensure the maximum IT efficiency with minimal investment. and make sure it should be aligned with the performance with business objective, because business objective is to save cost and uptime. So we have to set the goals. We define the KPI, KRI to track the success, and we monitor based on that. Okay, so what is the audit perspective is we have to assess whether IT performance measurement is consistent, how well the performance improvement are documented, and whether governance framework support the optimization effort. That something is part of a requirement. So the question is, what is a critical success factor? So first is leadership support. Without leadership support, you can't implement anything. So any question in the exam talking about what is the most important success factor for performance, leadership support. And second is data. So if you want a successful performance optimization, top-down commitment is required. You need to be very clear with the goals and monitoring periodic reports. So auditor perspective is audit should ensure leadership commitment is reflected in the IT governance policies. Performance metrics are regularly reviewed, and process improvements are documented, tested, and validated. That something is part of the important. Okay, because otherwise it will be a problem. Another important thing we are using is balance scorecard. Very, very important. So any question in the exam talking about how to align IT with business, how to ensure the IT is creating a revenue for the business, we can do with the help of IT balance scorecard. IT balance scorecard. Let's say example, the company has decided to use cloud. So for that, we need to first increase the training for the people. By providing a training to the people, we upskilling them. And by upskilling them, we can able to create a revenue. Okay, I'll give one more example. Imagine you are hosting a grand party and you want it to be massive success. So IT balance scorecard works similarly to ensure your IT activity align with the business objective and deliver value. Okay, so let's say example, in a balance scorecard, we actually have a 4 perspective, and today it is used as a management tool. It is not IT tool, it's a management tool, because when we're talking about any initiative, we tell them, okay, how it creating a value for us. So we have a 4 angle here. We have a 4 angles here. Okay, the first angle say that how do user view IT? How do user view IT? Second is how does IT provide value? Okay. Third is how efficient are IT process? And fourth, how well IT prepare for future need. How well IT prepared for future need. So just like a great party must satisfy the guest, okay, IT must satisfy the end user. Is it clear? So we will look for, is the IT users complaining about system slow and all that. Then we will see how does IT provide value. Is it exceeding the budget? Okay, is it creating value? How efficient are the IT process? The IT system face downtime and all that. So this something is there. So when we talk about IT balance scorecard, it's very important. You need to have that perspective that how you are aligning all the functions and everything. Is it clear? That's why it is called as a IT balance scorecard. So whenever we doing any kind of a business functions and all that, we do this kind of a segregations. Okay. Like one more example is we going for a cloud. Okay, fine. So I will show you one more diagram. Okay. It's a very good diagram. So here we have a diagram. You can see business, future. So we have a business here. We have a future orientation, operational excellence, and user orientation. Is it clear? So let's say example, how well IT positioned to meet the future need. Okay. So objective is to train and educate the staff. By training education staff, we can improve the operations. By improving our operation, we can improve the user orientations. And by that, I can able to increase the revenue. So I'm using the IT balance scorecard for this also. So ultimate goal, any strategy you're introducing, it should be aligned with the IT business, and balance scorecard demonstrate that how your initiatives align with the business. It measure IT contribution. It provides a structured approach to the IT performance evaluation. So BSc focus on 4 perspective: user orientation, how user perceive IT service; business contribution, how it impact the business strategy; efficiency of the IT process, and ability to meet the future need. So auditor here is to check if the BSc metrics with the business need, and how IT performance is measured and optimized, and more important, how effectiveness of the IT investment based on the BSc. Now next is called as a quality control and quality assurance. Listen carefully. QA focus on process assurance and QC focus on testing. I'm giving you assurance you will pass the exam. How? By doing testing of your knowledge. So here we have a difference between the QA and QC. So QA is a process oriented, QC is a product oriented. Objective: prevent the error by defining standards. Detect the error is part of QC. Focus on proactive approach. QC is reacting approach. An example we have is implementing 9001. That's a QA, but conducting a testing is part of a QC. So as an auditor, we evaluate change management controls, segregation of a duty, and QA prevent the operation disruptions. Okay, QA ensure data integrity and security, and we also look for the QA is, you have to check this QA is independent function. We have to be, QA should be independent functions. It should not get influenced by anyone results and everything. So overall QA and QC is part of overall quality management, which cover your software developments, maintenance, hardware, software acquisitions, IT security, change incident management. So they play important role in all this process. So auditor basically focus is to ensure the QA is independent. Repeat again, it should be independent. Second is it should be review how defects are identified, tracks and resolved, and we verify the controls for the code integrity. So that something is where the process we follow. So this is all in the domain 2, part 2. Oh, so do let me know how do you find this particular video, and really putting a lot of efforts in this content, and your comments are very important, which help me to make my content better. Without your support, I'm nothing. So do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye. Take care.